Chapter 30:16. The world gradually became silent. The area within a radius of thousands of miles had turned into a collapsed and withered land. There were no mountains, rivers, vegetation, or trees. In the distance, many figures forcibly suppressed the panic in their hearts and approached this side. These were all cultivators who had been watching the battle in the nearby area. After Tsang Jinxing's manifestation descended into the world, they immediately fled far away. Therefore, no one saw what happened before. At this time, when they saw Lin Sun's figure standing in the void, these spectators were all stunned. Their pupils widened little by little, and uncontrollable horror began to spread on their cheeks. Lin Sun was the only one alive in the world of destruction. How could anyone who saw this scene not know that Wang Daoxing and the other 10 immortal giants from the 8th heaven have all died in this disaster? Moreover, the eternal realm manifestation was likely to be defeated by Lin Sun. At the thought of this, those spectators were dumbfounded. On the 22nd day after Lin Sun arrived in the 6th heaven, he killed 2 eternal realm manifestations and 10 transcendent realm great perfection experts at the peak of Tianyun Divine Mountain. The news came out, and the world was shocked. How terrifying! How did he do it? Many major forces were completely shocked when they heard the news. According to the spectators, when the battle broke out, the sky and the earth cracked, and the sun and moon lost their light. Not to mention the existence of heavenly longevity realm. Even the old monsters of Nirvana realm could only retreat far away. They couldn't watch the battle at all. This is by no means something that Lin Sun can do alone. How can someone like him shake the will of an eternal realm expert? So, someone else is secretly helping Lin Sun. It must be so. Don't forget, Yuan sect is one of the 4 ancestral halls. How can they just stand by and watch? All kinds of discussion sounded. In this battle, the forces sent by the 10-clan battle alliance were completely annihilated, which was simply unacceptable. When discussing Lin Sun's combat power, they unanimously agreed that it was impossible to achieve this with Lin Sun's combat power alone. In this regard, Lin Sun naturally couldn't explain anything. Some things were like this, breaking the rules and creating miracles. If they didn't witness it with their own eyes, no one would believe it was true. The Zheng family is finished. There were also people who predicted that the immortal Emperor clan Zheng clan, who had become the dog of the 10-clan war alliance, would be annihilated. In fact, on the 2nd day after the battle on the Tianyun Divine Mountain, the immortal Emperor clan's Zheng clan suffered a disaster. Just like the 9 undying Emperor clans that were destroyed before, the Zheng clan's higher-ups were all killed, their Emperor realm experts were crippled, their order energy was taken, and the clan's foundation was uprooted. Such a familiar way of dealing with things. Who wouldn't know who did it? For a time, another uproar occurred in the 6th heaven. The Tianyun Divine Mountain had already been destroyed during the battle. But Lin Sun didn't leave. As if nothing had happened, he continued to stay there, meditating and waiting quietly. Annihilating Wang Daoxing and other old fogies allowed Lin Sun to seize a large amount of plentiful spoils of war, and it allowed Lin Sun to not have to worry about cultivation resources in the short term. Late at night, the world was quiet and clear. Above the ruins, Lin Sun sat cross-legged. With my current battle strength, I can easily destroy an eternal realm expert's Dharma idol if I suddenly use the Gate of Exile. Even if the other party has a secret treasure related to time, it won't be of much use, Lin Sun pondered. In the past, his cultivation was limited. The magical power he displayed was easily resisted and resolved by the enemy's carefully prepared secret treasure of time. But now it was different. His cultivation could easily suppress the old monsters at the transcendent realm great perfection. Under such circumstances, even if the other party used the secret treasure of time, it would be useless. Just like in the battle with Wang Daoxing and others, the treasures used by the other party contain the power to resist the power of time. Obviously, they came prepared and knew very well that Lin Sun's magical power was the most frightening. Unfortunately, they didn't expect that Lin Sun could easily kill them with only his cultivation. This was the key to their total annihilation. If the 10-clan battle alliance learns of this news, Will they send more experts? Lin Sun pondered. Lin Sun pondered for a while. He decided to wait for a while. If the other party is afraid of him, he won't waste any more time in the sixth heaven. The eighth heaven. Wang family, the immortal giant, in a towering palace filled with divine brilliance. Boom! Wang Zhongqian, the patriarch of the Wang family, smashed the teacup, and his elegant and handsome face had become extremely gloomy. On both sides of the main hall, a group of high-level figures of the Wang family sat, and their faces were quite ugly at the moment. Just now, they had received the news and learned about what happened in the sixth heaven. This must be a trap, someone said in a deep voice. Yuan's sect used Lin Sun as bait and has already made arrangements in the sixth heaven. Otherwise, with Lin Sun's ability, I'm afraid he would have been killed many times. Someone nodded and said, this child's combat power is heaven-defying and has the potential of the immortal supreme. Maybe he can fight against the old monsters of the transcendent realm great perfection, but I don't believe that he has the ability to kill the will of the eternal realm. It's certain that Yuan's sect wants to start a war with us in advance and deliberately set up such a killing trap. Everyone was talking at once, and they were all angry. Wang Zhongqian had been silent. Since the beginning of the immortal Tao battle in the 10 demonic territory, the Wang family had lost 2 transcendent realm great perfection existences in less than 100 years. One was Wang Zhongyuan, who was killed on Lin Sun's way back to Yuan's sect. The other was Wang Daoxing, who died in the sixth heaven. Even if he was the first immortal supreme in the eighth heaven, with a monstrous foundation and power, there were only more than 30 transcendent realm powerhouses in the entire Wang family over the years. However, there were only 9 who had reached the transcendent realm great perfection. In less than 100 years, 2 such old antiques died because of Lin Sun. Such a heavy blow made Wang Zhongtian's heart bleed. The most terrible thing was that the will of Tsang Jiansheng, who was invited by the Wang family this time, was also destroyed. If the Tsang family of the ninth heaven knew about this, they would be furious. They might even blame the Wang family for not doing things well. Patriarch, how do you think we should deal with this matter? Someone spoke, awakening Wang Zhongqian from his contemplation. He glanced at the people around him and saw the undisguised anger on their faces. He couldn't help but take a deep breath and suppress the irritation in his heart. Of course, we can't just let this matter go, Wang Zhongtian said resolutely. I believe that the other 9 Immortal Supreme have also received such bad news. They are destined not to swallow this humiliation. As he spoke, he stood up and said with a cold gaze, pass my message. Summon the patriarchs of the other 9 Immortal Supreme. 2 days later, we will gather at our Wang family to discuss this important matter. 2 days later, Wang family. In the same hall, the patriarchs of the top 10 Immortal Supreme gathered together. Brother Wang, since you summoned us here, I'm afraid you have a plan in mind. Why don't you tell us? Fu Chaolan, the patriarch of the Fu clan, said in a deep voice. He was dressed in a green robe and had a handsome appearance. He sat casually like a dragon or a tiger. Everyone is clear about what happened in the sixth heaven, so I won't repeat it. This time, there's only one thing I want to do, and that is how to take revenge on the Yuan sect. Wang Zhongtian said solemnly. To be honest, although I am extremely angry, I haven't thought of an effective way. Everyone's expression flickered indeterminately. It wasn't just Wang Zhongtian, they were also helpless. It wasn't that they were afraid of the Yuan sect, but in the current situation, even if they wanted to deal with the Yuan sect, they didn't know where to start. First of all, the entire Yuan sect is holed up in the Yuan realm. With the protection of the divine order, they have no chance to kill their way into the Yuan realm. Secondly, in the eternal true world, all the clans and forces related to the big shots of the Yuan sect have already moved many years ago and now settled in the Yuan realm. In this way, they can't even find something that can threaten the Yuan sect. Although Lin Sun appeared in the sixth heaven, the destruction of Wang Daoxing and the others made the 10-clan war alliance realize that Lin Sun is most likely a bait, a trap that the Yuan sect has long set up. Under such circumstances, They don't dare to easily send forces to the sixth heaven to take risks. The atmosphere in the hall was gloomy. Seeing this, Wang Zhongtian immediately understood that these old guys were the same as him. They also couldn't think of a good way. He said in a deep voice, "Everyone, in my opinion, if we want to take revenge this time, we still have to start with Lin Sun. Even if the Yuan sect has already set up a trap in the sixth heaven, as long as our Ten Clan War Alliance sends enough powerful forces, any conspiracy and tricks will be crushed." The eyes of the other patriarchs narrowed. Someone asked, "Last time, we sent 10 transcendent realm great perfection existences and 2 eternal realm willpower, but they were all annihilated. Under such circumstances, how many forces should we send to destroy the Yuan sect's layout?" Wang Zhongtian was silent for a while, then said, "Even if the Yuan sect has set up a trap in the sixth heaven, it is impossible for them to go all out. After all, once the big shots like Xian failing leave, there will be no one in the Yuan sect to take charge of the overall situation. At that time, even the divine order power won't be able to protect the Yuan sect." Everyone nodded. They had also thought of this point. Wang Zhongtian continued, "It is certain that the Yuan sect must have more than 2 eternal realm willpower Dharma images in their hands. Otherwise, it would be impossible to defeat the 2 seniors Song Jiansheng and Wen Zhugao." Someone said directly, "Brother Wang, we all know what you said in our hearts. Just tell us, what should we do?" Others also looked at Wang Zhongtian. Wang Zhongtian took a deep breath, and madness flashed between his eyebrows. "Since I want to play, let's play it big." When our Ten Clan War Alliance was established, we reached an agreement that when dealing with the Yuan sect, each of us will send 5 transcendent realm great perfection existences, 30 transcendent realm existences, and hundreds of nirvana realm existences. This time, since we're going to the sixth heaven to kill Lin Sun and destroy the plot of the Yuan sect, we should train our troops in advance and dispatch the forces of the Ten Clan War Alliance together. There will be more updates later. Chapter 3017. Wang Zhongtian's words silenced the entire hall. Absolute silence. All the patriarchs were stunned, mobilizing all the forces of the Ten Clan War Alliance. It has to be said that this was an extremely crazy and bold decision. Originally, they were going to wait until Yubeihai reached the Eternal Realm before sending such a force to attack the Yuan sect. But now, Wang Zhongtian actually wanted to use such a force to deal with Lin Sun of the sixth heaven. Who wouldn't be surprised? In this way, we will be at an absolute advantage. We can kill Lin Sun and destroy the Yuan sect's plan. Wang Zhongtian continued, "Of course, even if Lin Sun and the people of the Yuan sect notice that something is wrong and escape in advance, we won't suffer any loss." "Okay, let's do that." Fu Chaolon gritted his teeth and was the first to agree. In these years, the Fu family had suffered the greatest loss. The reason was that the Fu family had been operating in the Yuan sect for countless years, and many of their clansmen cultivated in the Yuan sect. But now, they'd all been annihilated by the Origin sect. This made the Fu family furious. If they didn't take revenge, no one would be able to bear it. "Yes, in that case, let's do it. As long as we can capture and kill Lin Sun, everything is worth it." The other patriarchs also agreed one after another, full of murderous intent. Seeing this, Wang Zhongtian said, "In addition, we also need to invite the Dharma images of 3 Eternal Realm experts. This matter will be handled by the Zhongli family, the Zhong family, and the Qi family." The patriarchs of the 3 immortal giants couldn't help but hesitate. They also had the support of the Eternal God clan of the Ninth Heaven, but if they wanted to invite the Dharma images of Eternal Realm experts, they would have to pay a great price. But facing the gazes of everyone, the 3 patriarchs suddenly realized that they couldn't hesitate anymore. Otherwise, they would definitely anger the public. They immediately agreed. Wang Zhongtian said coldly, "We should also let the Zen sect and the Witch sect know about this matter. We can't just rely on ourselves to deal with the Yuan sect and Lin Sun." Everyone chimed in without hesitation when they heard this. Yuan sect, Central Hall, Xian Failing, Du Yong, and the other 7 deputy pavilion masters gathered together. As soon as they learned the news of what happened in the sixth heaven, they were also shocked. Du Guiyong frowned and said, Lin Sun has poked a hornet's nest. I'm afraid that the Ten Clans Fighting League will do something crazy in anger. Don't worry. Even the willpower of an Eternal Realm expert can't do anything to him. Xian Failing smiled and comforted him. The other old monsters had strange expressions on their faces. He'd annihilated Wang Daoxing and the others in a single battle. Such a shocking accomplishment in battle caused them to be astounded. Although there were no details of the battle in the news, they were sure that Song Jianxing's Dharma was also destroyed by Lin Sun. Could it be that we're just going to stay in the Origin sect and watch it happen? Fang Daoping asked. Yu Xing also said worriedly, after suffering such a big loss, if the Ten Clans Fighting Alliance takes action again, they will surely exhaust all means. In this case, Lin Sun's situation is not good. Xian Failing was silent for a while, stopped smiling, and said seriously, Do you still remember what Lin Sun said when he left? No matter what happens in the outside world, we are not allowed to take action. After a pause, he said, What's more, even if he can't beat them, with his current ability, he can escape back to the Yuan sect alive. Du Guiyong said unhappily, Old monster Xian, do you have the heart to let Lin Sun suffer alone in the outside world? Xian Failing smiled bitterly. It's not that I have the heart, but the situation is far from as serious as you think. What's more, do you think that with our strength, even if we go to the sixth heaven to help Lin Sun, how useful can it be? After a pause, he said word by word, Only by guarding the Yuan sect can Lin Sun be completely at ease when fighting in the outside world. Everyone looked at each other and fell into silence, with complex emotions in their hearts. Everyone, in the past, Lin Sun was weak and needed us to shelter him from the wind and rain. But now, his combat power has long been above us. We old bones can help him guard the sect. Xian Failing sighed with emotion. I understand what he's thinking. He just wants to do something for our sect before Pavilion Master Yu Beihai achieves the Eternal Tao. He can't bear to see the sect suffer, so he resolved those disasters by himself. In the end, he couldn't calm down. For a time, the old monsters in the hall also felt a lot. Lin Sun, who would have thought that the young man who needed their protection in the past had now grown into a towering tree that could shelter the whole sect from the wind and rain? It's settled then. Xian Failing made the decision. Until leaving the central hall, Fang Daoping followed up and asked, Old monster Xian, are you sure you don't want to help Lin Sun? Xian Failing was stunned and said calmly, Of course not. Fang Daoping laughed immediately. I know you are the one who can't let go of Lin Sun. Spirit Sect. Divine Wind Hall. Third Senior Sister Ruo Su and a group of descendants of Mountain of Mind and Heart gathered together. I have promised Junior Brother that no matter where such a disaster occurs, what we have to do is to guard our camp. Otherwise, once we rush to rescue him, we are very likely to fall into the enemy's trap. Senior Sister, we can't do nothing, can we? Chunyu couldn't help but say. The others also looked at Ruo Su. Ruo Su said softly, If we do nothing, there will be no mistakes. At least in this spirit sect, with our strength, we can protect ourselves. As long as we are not in danger, Junior Brother can be at ease. Everyone wanted to say something, but they were interrupted by Ruo Su, Junior Brothers and Sisters. No need to say more. Until the crowd dispersed. Ruo Su's eyebrows showed a touch of worry, and she sighed faintly in her heart. It was a lie to say that she was not worried. The sixth heaven. It had been 7 days since Wang Daoxing and others were killed. Lin Sun's would Taoist body had been waiting in Tianyun Divine Mountain, and his real body had left to inquire about the news in other places. Late at night, in a world far away from the ruins of Tianyun Divine Mountain, many figures silently appeared. The leader was a man with long hair, as black as ink, looking like a teenager. Wang Daofeng, an old antique of the first immortal giant Wang family. He was in charge of the Ten Clan Combat Alliance's operation. Behind him, 3 transcendent realm great perfection existences of the Wang family and 36 transcendent realm great perfection existences of the other 9 immortal giants followed. Including Wang Daofeng, there were a total of 40 people. It could be said that the 10 immortal giants put in a lot of effort this time. Each of them dispatched 4 antiques of the transcendent realm great perfection level and 3 eternal realm figures Dharma image. The lineup was so powerful that it could make any major force below the 9th heaven tremble in fear. Of course, this was not the full strength of the 10-clan combat alliance. The reason was that over the years, among the 10 immortal giants, there were more or less antiques of the transcendent realm great perfection that had fallen. As a result, they could only dispatch so many antiques for this operation. One should know that the current number 1 immortal giant, the Wang family, only had a total of 7 transcendent realm great perfection existences. However, for this operation, they dispatched 4 of them at once. The number of transcendent realm great perfection powerhouses among the other immortal giants was even less than the Wang family. Now, each of them dispatched 4 of such existences. One could imagine how much effort they put into this operation. In fact, such a lineup was already horrifying. Even among the 4 ancestral halls, there was no one that could have so many transcendent realm great perfection powerhouses. Everyone, when we came here, we already found out that Lin Sun has always been in the vicinity of this Tianyun God Mountain and has never left. Wang Daofeng, who was the leader, had a cold look in his eyes as he transmitted his voice. When we move later, as long as we find any traces of him, there's no need to say anything. Immediately attack and kill him. Behind him, the group of antiques all nodded. Let's go. Silently, Wang Daofeng led the group to teleport through the void and flew towards a faraway place. The night was as dark as ink. The surroundings were silent. Wang Daofeng and his group's movements did not leak any aura. They were like a group of ghosts teleporting, and not even the slightest sound of wind could be heard. On the ruins of the Tianyun God Mountain, Lin Sun's greenwood Taoist physique, who was sitting cross-legged, quietly opened his eyes. At this moment, he sensed a cold and dangerous aura. Immediately, he stood up, and his enormous divine sense spread out. He instantly noticed that a group of figures were silently approaching from the extremely distant sky. Although each aura was restrained to the extreme, it could not hide from Lin Sun's eyes. He instantly determined that there were 40 transcendent realm great perfection existences. This made him involuntarily gasp. Did the 10-clan battle alliance send all of their underlings here? Lin Sun was very clear that although the 10 immortal giants foundation was terrifying and strong, the number of transcendent realm great perfection existences in their respective clans was extremely limited. But now, 40 of such old guys were dispatched at once. They're going to use absolute strength to finish the battle in one fell swoop. Lin Sun murmured in his heart, feeling a strong sense of vigilance. It could be foreseen that the 10-clan battle alliance had completely thrown caution to the wind and wanted to take him down in one fell swoop. There was no doubt that with the last lesson, they must have prepared more trump cards and killer moves this time. I really want to get rid of these guys all at once. Lin Sun's greenwood Taoist physique sighed his heart. Now he was just a doppelganger. If his main body and other doppelgangers were here, he might try to swallow all the opponents. But now, with the power of his doppelganger, it was almost impossible. It was not that the number of enemies was too large or the lineup was too terrifying, but the enemy had unpredictable trump cards and killer moves in their hands. At this moment, even if they released an Eternal Realm Dharma idol, it was enough to pose a great threat to him. Without hesitation, Lin Sun's greenwood Taoist physique made a prompt decision and turned to leave. However, almost at the same time, Wang Daofeng and other old antiques had already noticed his existence and immediately teleported to kill him at full speed. More updates. Chapter 3018. Immediately, several old antiques displayed the secret method of space shifting. Their speed suddenly soared, and they appeared in front of Lin Sun's wood Taoist physique in an instant. Go to hell. As soon as a thin old man in a gray robe rushed over, he stabbed a silver shuttle in his hand at Lin Sun fiercely. The shuttle flashed with palpitating fluctuations of the law. At the moment when it was stabbed, The nearby void seemed to be frozen and stagnated. Great space, forbidden skill. This kind of supreme power was enough to ban a small world in an instant. It was really terrifying. Lin Sun's would Taoist physique paused for a moment, and then he suddenly stretched out his body. With a bang, the nearby confined space exploded, and the silver shuttle, stabbed by the old man in a gray robe, was caught by Lin Sun's would Taoist physique. Bang! The silver shuttle exploded directly, and the thin old man in a gray robe was shaken and staggered back. His face couldn't help but change. What a terrible combat power this boy had. Kill. Creator's Guide. As soon as Lin Sun broke the attack of the old man in a gray robe, there were two antiques on both sides of the void. One waved a golden spear, setting off the monstrous divine flame law and incinerating the sky. The other waved a Taoist sword and chopped down a vast sword chi like a galaxy. The sword chi reflected the sun, moon, and stars, as well as the latitude and longitude of heaven and earth. It was grand and boundless. Lin Sun's with Taoist physique didn't dodge. While rushing straight forward, he condensed an ancient seal in his left hand and made a stroke with his right hand. Clang! The monstrous golden divine flames were broken apart, and the ancient seal smashed onto the dazzling golden spear. Old Antique, who was holding the spear, felt as if he'd been struck by lightning. He staggered back and almost coughed up blood. At the same time, the sword chi from Lin Sun's right hand cut horizontally, easily cutting a huge crack in the vast Star River sword. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Sun moved away. In an instant, the siege of the three antiques was broken, which made their faces change. Who would have thought that Lin Sun could be so strong? However, because of their obstruction, Lin Sun slowed down for a moment, giving Wang Daofeng and others a chance to catch up. Kill! Wang Daofeng's eyes were as cold as a knife, and he rushed forward with his sword. Behind him, dozens of transcendent realm, great perfection old antiques also moved out. They had lived for countless years and had experienced countless life and death situations, so their combat experience was naturally extremely rich. At this moment, they'd encircled over together, and the might they emanated simply covered the heavens and the earth. It pressed down upon this expanse of the heavens and the earth to the point of showing signs of collapse and destruction. This was too terrifying. A total of 40 antiques joined hands to deal with Lin Sun's greenwood Taoist figure. If it were anyone else, he or she would have been in despair. For a time, the dazzling glow of the Tao was like a torrent that swept through the sky, and it tore the ink-black veil of night apart while rumbling of battle that shook the heavens and the earth swept out. It simply seemed like a peerless expedition of the primeval gods had erupted. Every single Tao art possessed the might to destroy the heavens and the earth. Each type of Tao soldier could easily crush mountains and rivers. Those scenes are like the arrival of doomsday. In such a battle, Lin Sun's greenwood Taoist physique was repeatedly blocked even though he tried his best to break through. He was in an extremely dangerous situation. However, even then, it still caused Wang Daofeng and the others to frown without end. They had a total of 40 transcendent realm great perfection experts. If they attacked together, they could sweep away any immortal figure in the heavens. But now, they couldn't even capture Lin Sun, a young man in transcendent realm late stage, in such a short time. Kill. They didn't hold back. Each of them was like a god running amok. Their murderous aura was overwhelming. I can't be trapped like this anymore. Otherwise, this doppelganger will be destroyed. Lin Sun's greenwood Taoist physique thought to himself. The number of enemies didn't pose a serious threat. What made him most afraid was the trump card and trump card in the opponent's hands. Once greenwood Taoist physique started killing, it might be able to kill many opponents, but it was destined to be threatened by the trump card released by the opponent. In this case, greenwood Taoist physique would be destroyed. After all, greenwood Taoist physique was a doppelganger of Lin Sun. Although its combat power was comparable to Lin Sun's, it didn't possess the talent of devouring abyss, nor could it display many forbidden supernatural powers. Open. After making the decision, Lin Sun's greenwood Taoist physique no longer hesitated. Endless bright and crystal green divine flame suddenly burst out of his body. His whole body became incomparably majestic, like a burning ancient cyan world. He rushed forward and displayed all kinds of supreme secret techniques, which turned into sword chi, palm prints, fist energy, wind, thunder, and lightning, and a sea of fire sweeping the sky. The kind of unparalleled power was enough to easily suppress any existence in transcendent realm great perfection. Just like at this moment. Boom! In the earth-shattering roar, several antiques who attacked from all sides were violently shaken away. Their Taoist techniques and Taoist soldiers burst like bubbles. Lin Sun's figure took this opportunity to rush away. There was a burst of angry shouts in the field. Stop him! Don't let him escape! Chase him! Wang Daofeng and other antiques chased after Lin Sun. They displayed all their skills and used all kinds of magical treasures. Flying knives, flying swords, flying shuttles, secret talismans, pagodas, Taoist bells, dense treasures tore the sky, flashing with horrible destructive aura, and bombarded Lin Sun, who was fleeing in the distance at an incredible speed. In addition, there were also some insidious secret techniques, most of which were related to space, such as space reversal, space stagnation, space confinement, and so on. In the face of such a terrifying pursuit, other people in the same realm would have died with hatred. Even Lin Sun's greenwood Taoist body seemed to be quite embarrassed in such a dense and storm-like chase. It didn't take long for him to be injured. He might not be injured if he confronted them head-on. In the final analysis, he was fleeing, which meant that he gave up the means of fighting and could only defend passively. Kill! Wang Daofeng and others chased after him. Farther away, Lin Sun's greenwood Taoist physique teleported in the void and fled with all his strength. Looking from the ground, wherever they passed, the sky collapsed, the clouds were incinerated, and the void was broken into countless cracks. In just a few breaths, he had teleported thousands of miles away. Along the way, Lin Sun's greenwood Taoist body looked calm and his eyes were cold. Even though he was injured, these injuries were not serious and not fatal for him. Even though he was being pursued closely by a group of seniors, he didn't panic at all. It was only a clone, so even if it was unfortunately destroyed in the end, it wouldn't cause any harm to his main body. When I meet up with the main body, I'll settle this score with these old things. A ruthless expression appeared on Lin Sun's face. In the distance, the silhouette of a city appeared in the dark night. Lin Sun immediately changed his direction and made a decision. It flew past the city in the distance. Otherwise, the killing methods and the power of the treasures that the old fellas behind him constantly released could easily destroy this giant city. But what Lin Sun didn't expect was that Wang Daofeng and others didn't do that. In order to catch him as soon as possible, they flew over the huge city in a grandiose manner. In the city, the lights were bright and the traffic was heavy. Countless bustling figures walked through the streets and alleys. It was bustling and noisy, and it was a peaceful and grand occasion. Daddy, what's that? A little girl with a ponytail, sitting on the shoulder of a middle-aged man, opened her eyes wide and looked curiously at a bright shadow that suddenly appeared in the night sky far away. She even forgot to eat the candied fruit in her hand. The middle-aged man raised his head, and his face changed greatly in an instant. He immediately held the little girl in his arms and lay down on the ground. Boom! In the next moment, the countless bustling and clamorous scenes within the entire enormous city seemed as if they were incinerated by a surging and blazing flame. The row upon row of buildings transformed into ash, the crisscrossing streets collapsed into scorched earth, and the millions of living beings that were distributed throughout the city were instantly annihilated. All this was caused by the killing intent and divine power released by Wang Daofeng and others when they passed through the sky. Far away, Lin Sun, who was preparing to escape, saw this scene clearly. At this moment, his body was slightly stiff, his fingers trembled slightly, and an uncontrollable killing intent surged in his heart. It stimulated him like lava and made him feel like exploding. A bustling and beautiful giant city and the countless living beings that resided within it had been reduced to nothingness in an instant. Although he had slaughtered countless opponents since he started his cultivation, he had always maintained the state of mind and never killed innocent people. Even when he destroyed the 9 immortal emperor clans in the 6th heaven, he didn't kill the weak. But now, millions of people were killed in front of his eyes. This tragic scene stimulated Lin Sun completely. He suddenly turned around, his black eyes cold, and took off the purple gourd around his waist. Clang! From the gourd, a cyan sword rushed out, like the vast sky. Holding the cyan sword, Lin Sun's chi surged and rushed to the sky and the earth. Why don't you escape? Wang Daofeng waved his hand and stopped in the void with a group of old antiques. He saw at a glance that Lin Sun's state was a little abnormal. His chi was violent and raging, which was completely different from before. From the beginning to the end, no one cared that a prosperous and majestic giant city was destroyed by the power they released just now. As for the millions of living lives, it was even more impossible for them to care about it. They only cared about whether they could capture Lin Sun. You need to be buried with those who died in the city. Lin Sun's black eyes were burning with raging flames, and the cyan sword pointed at the enemies in the distance. Hearing this, Wang Daofeng and others were stunned for a moment, and their expressions were strange. It seemed that they finally understood why Lin Sun didn't escape. It was just that it was a little hard for them to believe. So, the reason why you chose not to escape is that you want to avenge those ants who died in the city? Wang Daofeng couldn't help asking. The expressions of the old antiques behind him also became strange. They didn't expect that Lin Sun, a peerless and ruthless person who killed countless people, would choose to stay for such a childish reason. Chapter 30:19. Wang Daofeng and the others didn't understand. He was a young man who had slaughtered his way to eternal true world from the great 1,000 battle realms and fought until his hands were stained with blood. How could he be so angry that he wanted to fight them to the death just because one city had lost its people? They couldn't figure it out either. However, when they saw that Lin Sun was no longer running away, it was naturally a happy thing for them. Boom! In the distance, Lin Sun's green wood Taoist physique stepped in the air and charged toward them. The green divine sword, transformed by the rare 9th level heaven rank power, let out a clear cry and slashed down furiously. The misty green sword intent pressed down on them like the ancient sky. Attack! Wang Daofeng waved his hand. All the old antiques attacked boldly. Each of them summoned their Taoist soldiers and surrounded them. Boom! Heaven and earth shook, and the sun and moon lost their light. The war broke out, turning the nearby mountains and rivers into ruins in an instant. Everything was destroyed. But from this moment on, Lin Sun's green wood Taoist physique no longer retreated. His whole body was burning with dazzling green divine flame, and his eyes were surging with terrible killing intent. As he waved his sword, crack! The oncoming giant axe was cleaved in half. The one holding the giant axe was a mighty middle-aged man. The sword strike caught him off guard and split half of his body in half. Blood splattered in the air. It was too fierce and domineering. This made the others' eyes narrow. They keenly sensed that Lin Sun's combat strength was obviously different from before. Before, he was determined to escape, but now he was determined to kill. Die! A fiery red whip smashed down like a soaring red dragon. It coiled in circles and firmly confined the nearby space, while the divine flame released by the whip attacked Lin Sun. Lin Sun didn't even look at it. He suddenly stretched out his left hand and grabbed it. Boom! The flames all over the sky were torn apart, and the confined space burst like glass. Lin Sun grabbed the red dragon-like whip and exerted his strength. Bang! 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 The long whip exploded into pieces inch by inch. The black-clothed woman holding the whip staggered and coughed up blood. Her eyes couldn't help but be filled with shock. What a terrifying combat strength! It was also at this moment that they deeply realized how powerful Lin Sun was. In the next battle, Lin Sun showed the power of Wood Tao body. Even under the heavy siege, he killed 3 old antiques and seriously injured more than 10 people. This bloody accomplishment caused the expressions of Wang Daofeng and the others to change abruptly, and they were both shocked and furious. They'd been besieged by 40 seniors. Yet the enemy had still seized the opportunity to kill 3 of their companions and heavily injure over 10 others. This was simply difficult for them to accept. Kill. Use your trump card. We can't let him be so arrogant anymore. All right. With a roar, someone took out an obscure and mysterious treasure, which turned into a forbidden power and shrouded Lin Sun. Some activated order treasures, and the power contained within them was actually related to god-level orders. There were also 4 old-timers from the same immortal level who joined forces to form a battle formation. Their power was terrifying to the extreme. Rumble, rumble. The heavens and the earth seemed to have fallen completely and transformed into an expanse of chaotic chaos. All sorts of blazing and terrifying torrents of energy raged through the surroundings, and the scene was so terrifying that it was sufficient to horrify the gods. Under such a fierce attack, Lin Sun's Wood Tao body began to be injured continuously. The power of those trump cards and trump cards was indeed incredibly powerful, which posed a great threat to him. But at the same time, Lin Sun's Wood Tao body was still as strong as before. He was extremely powerful, and he severely injured several opponents. Kill. Wang Daofeng and the others' faces were extremely livid. Originally, they thought it would be easy to capture Lin Sun, but up to this point, they had paid a great price, which made their hearts bleed. After all, every loss of an old antique at the level of transcendent realm consummation was a big blow to the forces behind them. Their attacks became more and more fierce and terrifying. They besieged Lin Sun heavily, and all kinds of secret methods and treasures were bombarded wildly, as if they were worthless. But in such a dangerous situation, Lin Sun's Wood Tao body still didn't flinch. Occasionally, he would rather injure his opponents severely at the cost of injuries. It was obvious that he was fighting desperately. In fact, Lin Sun didn't care about his Wood Tao body anymore. It was no different from fighting desperately. Soon, more and more enemies were injured. But the injury of Lin Sun's Wood Tao body was also getting more and more serious. At this time, Wang Daofeng and the others couldn't help but become serious. They completely understood why Wang Daoxing and the other antiques were destroyed last time. Lin Sun didn't need to ask for help at all. His combat power alone could pose a fatal threat to these antiques. All this also made them realize that all their previous inferences and guesses were wrong. The trap, the bait, and the layout of Yuan's sect were all fake. Lin Sun was the biggest threat by himself. In the battle, Wang Daofeng's eyes were cold, and he shouted sternly, "Lin Sun, where's your trump card? If you don't use it now, you will definitely die." At this moment, Lin Sun's body was burning with countless wounds, like a bloody man. He was seriously injured, and everyone could see that he couldn't hold on for too long. But at this moment, Wang Daofeng and the others became more vigilant. Because up until now, Lin Sun hadn't used his trump card, like the Dharma image of an Eternal Realm expert. After all, Wang Daoxing and the other antiques had brought along the Dharma image of 2 Eternal Realm experts, yet they were completely annihilated in the battle against Lin Sun. How could Wang Daofeng and the others not be vigilant? However, Lin Sun's Wood Tao body paid no attention to them. He was still fighting while bathed in blood, and he didn't show any signs of using his trump card. Moreover, even though he was heavily injured, he still injured many of his opponents in the following battles. This caused Wang Daofeng and the others to be furious. You're still resisting stubbornly at a time like this. Since it's like this, then don't blame us for being merciless. Suddenly, one of the antiques from the Zhongli clan spoke in a low voice. Whem! He raised his hand and withdrew a jade scepter. Instantly, a tall figure that was suffused with an eternal aura appeared out of thin air. He wore wide sleeves and a belt, and he had a proud bearing. The imposing aura he emanated was like a landslide and a tsunami that swept through the heavens and the earth. Senior, please lend us a hand. The antiques from the Zhongli clan bowed respectfully. Starless Sea, a terrifying existence from the Jew clan of the Eternal Divine Clan in the Ninth Heaven. The Jew clan was the backing of the Zhongli clan. All the antiques that were besieging Lin Sun retreated successively when they saw this, and all of them revealed respectful expressions. This kid is already an arrow at the end of its flight, yet you still need me to lend a hand. Could it be that all of you are worried about something? Starless Sea frowned. In his gaze, Lin Sun was bathed in blood and was severely injured, and he wasn't a threat at all. Senior, it's very likely that this kid possesses the will of an Eternal Realm expert. We're worried that he'll counterattack before his death, so we have no choice but to ask you to lend a hand in advance. The antiques from the Zhongli clan hurriedly explained. Oh, Starless Sea came to a sudden understanding, and he looked towards Lin Sun in the distance. Now, I'll give you a chance to ask for help. Lin Sun's Tao body spoke with an expressionless face. If it was any other time, I could easily slaughter trash like you myself. Unfortunately, the timing isn't right today. He sighed lightly. He'd already realized that his Tao body would perish here. Starless Sea didn't waste his breath and flicked his sleeve. Boom! A sky-covering golden hand condensed in the void. Countless fine and dazzling eternal chi lingered around the big hand, covering Lin Sun's Tao body. Lin Sun's Tao body would not sit still and wait for death. But at the moment when he was about to take action, a strange look suddenly appeared in his eyes. Then whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, 4 figures teleported from a very far distance and rushed to the big golden hand together. They were the 4 Tao bodies of red fire, platinum, yellow earth, and black water. Boom! The 4 attacked together and smashed the big golden hand at one stroke, turning it into a golden rain of light all over the sky. Starless Sea was surprised. How could it be? Wang Daofeng and other antiques standing in the distance were also stunned. How could there be 4 Lin Sun all of a sudden? Immediately, they remembered that Lin Sun was rumored to have 5 Tao bodies. Every Taoist body had a cultivation that was not weaker than the original. This secret method was very similar to the supreme inheritance of Fu family for symbols and 9 spirits. However, Fu family's 4 symbols and 9 spirits could only condense 4 Tao doppelgangers, and it needed to divide the original spirit into 4 parts and integrate them into each doppelganger. The combat power exerted was also affected by the original's Tao. Could it be that the one who fought with us before was also one of Lin Sun's doppelgangers? Someone's face changed slightly. His words made other people's faces change, and their hearts churned. No matter how many doppelgangers he has, just suppress them all. Starless Sea's Dharma form snorted coldly and suddenly stepped forward. The horrible eternal realm aura spread and firmly locked Lin Sun's 5 doppelgangers. He waved his fist in the air to kill. Boom! The horrible golden fist intent rushed out, showing the eternal charm, collapsing the sky and covering all directions, giving people an unshakable power. Lin Sun's 5 Tao bodies looked at each other and all rushed to the sky. They didn't dodge, but rushed to Starless Sea. Seeing this scene, Wang Daofeng and others opened their eyes wide. That was the Eternal Realm's Dharma form. How could Lin Sun dare to fight it head-on? It was like an ant trying to shake a tree or an egg hitting a stone. It was ridiculous. However, a scene that made them all dumbfounded appeared. The golden fist intent of Starless Sea was forcibly smashed by Lin Sun's 5 Tao bodies. This shocked them all. Starless Sea showed a trace of disbelief. Right at this moment, an enormous spatial rift silently appeared in this expanse of the heavens and the earth, and a door that was 3 kilometers long surged out from the depths of the rift. It was like the door that led to hell had been opened, and it intended to drag this entire world in. The Gate of Exile. Starless Sea suddenly looked up, feeling a strong sense of danger. His face suddenly changed, and he moved to avoid it without hesitation. However, the 5 great Taoist bodies were already charging toward him from all directions, sealing off all his escape routes. Get out of here! Starless C shouted, and his strength broke out to the extreme. His whole body was covered with golden light, and he went straight to Greenwood Taoist body, who was the most seriously injured. For him, the defense of Greenwood Taoist body was the easiest to break. P.S. More tonight. Chapter 3020. Boom! Amid the violent collision, the extinct star C was obstructed. His pupils suddenly shrank. Only then did he see Lin Sun in front of the Greenwood Tao physique. Naturally, it was Lin Sun's main body. Kill. As soon as the main body appeared, it bombarded the extinct star C with other clones. At this moment, the door of exile descended and was already close at hand. The extinct star C's eyes turned red. He let out a deafening roar and attacked with all his might. With his cultivation, as well as charging with his life on the line, it was enough to sweep through any undying being in the world. However, Lin Sun was not one of them. Boom! In the fierce battle, the extinct star C's figure was obstructed again. This caused his eyes to widen, and he couldn't believe what he was seeing. A young transcendent realm late could fight against his Dharma form head-on. This completely subverted the extinct star C's understanding. Oh no! When the extinct star C wanted to attack again, the door of exile had already shrouded him. His vision turned black, and his figure was uncontrollably drawn into it, disappearing in an instant. Boom! At the same time, the nearby area was also in chaos. The door of exile, with a range of thousands of feet, suddenly appeared and engulfed everything. Many old antiques nearby stiffened. It was too late for them to dodge. No, damn it! What kind of magical power is this? Save me! Amidst the screams of anger, horror, and unwillingness, more than a dozen old antiques were drawn into the door of exile and disappeared in an instant. Wang Daofeng and other old antiques were lucky enough to survive. When they saw this scene, they broke out in cold sweat and were horrified. A dignified eternal realm will form was engulfed and disappeared before it could release its true divine might. As for his companions, each of them had the strength of transcendent realm great perfection. However, when faced with the cracked space-time door, they were involuntarily swept away. This unimaginable scene was too terrifying and horrifying. Return. Lin Sun's main body moved his mind. The door of exile, with a range of thousands of feet, suddenly turned into a light shadow and wrapped around his fingertips. Originally, the door of exile, with a range of thousands of feet, could only last for a dozen breaths. But after shrinking countless times, it could last for another quarter of an hour. For Lin Sun, this was enough. He first put away the severely injured Greenwood Taoist body. Then he and the other 4 Taoist bodies charged toward Wang Daofeng and the others in the distance. When his original body sensed that the Greenwood Taoist physique was in danger, he immediately rushed over. When he arrived, he finally understood what the Greenwood Taoist physique had experienced, especially when Lin Sun learned that the huge city with millions of creatures was wiped out in an instant. He also felt the furious killing intent of Greenwood Taoist figure. Kill! How could Wang Daofeng and the others just sit and wait for death? Rumble! In the blink of an eye, their figures were scattered. Lin Sun and the 4 Tao forms were like sharp knives. Although the 10 Clans Fighting League had a large number of people, how could they resist such a charge? In an instant, they were scattered in all directions. This caused all of their expressions to change. Before, just a doppelganger of Lin Sun could fight with them for a long time and kill several of their companions in the battle. Now that Lin Sun and the 4 Taoist bodies attacked together, their lethality had increased exponentially. Die! Lin Sun's original body drew a line with his finger. A touch of sword chi with the Gate of Exile turned into a ray of light and shadow, slashing on an antique's treasure. Clang! In the deafening explosion, the antique and his treasure disappeared into thin air. They were directly swept away by the Gate of Exile. Next, Lin Sun did the same. Wherever he passed, the transcendent realm, great perfection, existences disappeared without a trace, as if they had evaporated from the world. In just a few blinks of an eye, 6 antiques were exiled, This strange scene caused many people's hearts to tremble and tremble with fear. In other directions, the four Tau forms of scarlet fire, platinum, black water, and yellow earth also showed their unparalleled combat power. They attacked in a field as if they were crushing their opponents. Those opponents who were targeted by them could not stop them even if they desperately fought against them. Instead, they were killed on the spot one by one. Thick and hot blood constantly splashed out. Seeing this scene, Wang Daofeng's eyes almost popped out. He was about to go crazy. This time, they gathered 40 transcendent realm, great perfection existences together. They thought that they could absolutely crush Lin Sun and be invincible. However, the development of the situation completely subverted their expectations. Previously, 4 of them were killed by the green Wood Tau physique. Then, the Starless Sea and the other 11 antiques were swallowed by the Gate of Exile and disappeared. As Lin Sun and his other clones attacked, 9 antiques were killed one after another. At this time, there were only 16 people left on the entire battlefield. More than half of them were dead. Moreover, if they didn't stop Lin Sun, this number of casualties would continue. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and ask the other 2 seniors to make a move. Wang Daofeng roared, his voice shaking the universe. Suddenly, 2 terrifying eternal realm auras emerged on the battlefield. One was a man, and the other was a woman. The man wore a blood-red armor. His body was as tall as a mountain, and his body was covered in raging flames. His aura was terrifying. Panwu Xiong, an eternal realm existence of the Panwu clan of the Ninth Heavens, Eternal God clan. The woman had long hair coiled into a bun. She wore a water-green dress, and her skin was translucent. Wisps of eternal Tao light lingered around her. Taihao Cole Majesty, an eternal realm existence of the Taihao clan of the Ninth Heavens, Eternal God clan. As soon as the 2 appeared, they locked their eyes on Lin Sun and his clones, with indifference on their faces. But to their surprise, Lin Sun didn't seem to care at all. He directly rushed towards them. "Ant-like thing, you're courting death." Panwu Xiong snorted coldly. He grasped his palm, condensed a spear, and thrust it out. Boom! The terrifying eternal Tao light turned into a vortex, wrapping around the spear. The power it released seemed to be able to break through the clouds and shake the heavens. It was boundlessly domineering. At the fingertips of Lin Sun's original body, the Gate of Exile, which was originally like a stream of light, suddenly expanded and swallowed like a big mouth that appeared out of thin air. Panwu Xiong immediately sensed that something was wrong. But when he tried to dodge, Lin Sun's 4 Tau forms whistled over and attacked him. Senior dodge. At this moment, Wang Daofeng and the others screamed. They had witnessed the horror of the Gate of Exile and the scene of the Starless Seas while being swallowed. Unfortunately, their warning was a little too late. Boom! The world was in chaos. Lin Sun's 4 Tau forms and Panwu Xiong were fighting fiercely, dragging Panwu Xiong firmly. "Bastard! How dare you trick me?" Panwu Xiong let out a furious roar. But in the end, he was swallowed by the Gate of Exile along with Lin Sun's 4 Tau forms and disappeared. Wang Daofeng and the others felt their hands and feet go cold. How could it be? Taihao Cole Majesty was also shocked by this scene, and her expression changed. She had originally planned to save Panwu Xiong, but when she sensed the extremely strange power of time in the Gate of Exile, she held back. Now, seeing Panwu Xiong being swallowed, she was also shocked and thought that she was lucky. If she had tried to save Panwu Xiong just now, she would have been involved. Bang! At this point, the power of the Gate of Exile was exhausted and dissipated. "Let's go." Taihao Cole Majesty decisively decided to leave. The battle in front of her was too strange and dangerous, especially the death of Panwu Xiong, which made her feel a fatal threat. Under such circumstances, the wisest choice was to leave. She waved her sleeves and was about to leave with Wang Daofeng and the others. At this moment, Lin Sun used the time seal. Buzz! Between heaven and earth, the rules of time were drawn and turned into countless strands of flowing light, intertwining and condensing into a mysterious, forbidden formation, covering the world, mountains, and rivers. Lin Sun's face also turned pale in an instant. Using the gate of exile and the time seal continuously consumed a lot of his physical strength. If he continued to fight, he would definitely run out of energy. Boom! In the distance, Tai Hao Coal Majesty and Wang Daofeng were bombarding the time seal. Soon their hearts sank. They judged that they couldn't break the power of the time seal in a short time. Even if Tai Hao Coal Majesty attacked with all her strength, it would still take several hours. This made them both shocked and angry, and even felt a chill in their bones. From beginning to end, Lin Sun alone caused so many casualties. Who would dare to imagine this before? Don't worry, everyone. This boy is already an arrow at the end of its flight. He won't be able to hold on for too long. Suddenly, Tai Hao Coal Majesty noticed the change in Lin Sun's aura. Her eyes couldn't help but light up, and her expression was filled with killing intent. Wang Daofeng and the others were originally anxious, but when they saw Lin Sun's state, they all showed joy. Sure enough, you guys wait here. I will personally take care of this boy, Tai Hao Coal Majesty said coldly. Previously, facing a young transcendent realm late stage, she didn't dare to fight. She could only choose to retreat, which was a big blow to her dignity. If she didn't take the opportunity to take down Lin Sun this time, when the news spread to the ninth heaven, her face was bound to be damaged. Don't worry, none of you can escape this time. Lin Sun took out a jade bottle and poured a drop of innate divine dew into his mouth. Boom! In an instant, his body seemed to explode, and the surging torrent of power began to skyrocket. His originally exhausted physical strength was restored in the blink of an eye, and his entire aura returned to its peak state. This was the magical effect of innate divine dew. Lin Sun had a total of 9 in his hands. It was the biggest reward he received after returning from the 10 demonic territory to Yuan's sect. Every drop of innate divine dew could be called a rare treasure. It was born from the god-level order of Yuan's sect, and it had immeasurable benefits to cultivation. The most heaven-defying thing about this treasure was that once there were signs of exhaustion in battle, he only needed to swallow one, and he would instantly return to his peak state. Over the years, Lin Sun had been reluctant to use it, but now he didn't care. Far away, the changes in Lin Sun's aura were also seen by Tai Hao Coal Majesty, Wang Daofeng, and the others. All of them felt as if they were struck by lightning, and they almost couldn't believe their eyes. Previously, Lin Sun was almost exhausted, which was why they dared to fight him. But now, facing Lin Sun at his peak state, even Tai Hao Coal Majesty and Eternal Realm's Will had an extremely bad feeling. More updates. Chapter 3021. The time seal covered heaven and earth, making Tai Hao Hanwei, Wang Daofeng, and others like trapped beasts in a cage. Lin Sun's exhausted cultivation recovered in an instant, which made their hearts sink to the bottom. How could they fight? Without giving them a chance to think, Lin Sun had already rushed over. The blade pointed straight at Tai Hao Hanwei. Boom! Abyssal sword cauldrons swept out and blasted towards Tai Hao Hanwei with the power to suppress the heavens. Tai Hao Hanwei's eyes were filled with resentment. Her graceful figure stepped out, and her palms and fingers gently cut. The faint silver eternal light of Wei turned into a misty saber aura, and the abyssal sword cauldron trembled violently, roaring like thunder. But at the same time, Lin Sun and his 4 Tao bodies had already besieged. Fierce, domineering, and unparalleled. It was the first time Tai Hao Hanwei had been provoked like this since she started cultivating. Even though she was only an avatar right now, which undying being dared to attack her so unscrupulously in the multiverse. But the young man in Transcendent Realm late stage dared to. You guys focus on breaking the seal, and I will deal with this boy. As he spoke, Tai Hao Hanwei's graceful figure emerged with thousands of divine rainbows, like eternal divine chains, flashing a terrifying murderous aura, and fought fiercely with Lin Sun and his doppelgangers. Quick, do it! Wang Daofeng and others did not dare to hesitate. They gritted their teeth, exhausted all their means, and bombarded the time seal crazily. Some used forbidden treasures. Some used weapons imprinted with the aura of time to slash. Some of them used obscure and mysterious Taoist techniques. In short, these old monsters in the transcendent realm Great Perfection seemed to have gone crazy at this moment in order to survive. They did everything they could. If it was an ordinary seal, it would have been destroyed by their joint efforts. However, this seal of time was the fourth stage innate divine ability of the grand swallowing abyss. Although it didn't have any killing power, its defensive power could even trap an eternal realm expert's Dharma idol. It couldn't be broken in a short time, so it wasn't something that these immortal realm experts could easily deal with. But in order to survive, none of them gave up. Boom, boom, boom. The power of Time's seal constantly rippled, and Tao lights surged, dazzling the world. On the other side, Taihao Coldway and Lin Sun were also fighting fiercely. At this moment, Lin Sun and his doppelganger cooperated with each other. They were like a devil that defied the natural order, constantly defusing and shaking the attacks of Taihao Frigid Horse. Although the Greenwood Taoist physique was severely injured and had been put away, it still didn't show any signs of weakening even under such circumstances. When she looked at Taihao Hanwei again, her jade-like face was changing indeterminately, and the bewilderment in her eyes grew heavier and heavier. Originally, she was most afraid of Lin Sun's Gate of Exile. For example, Pan Wuxiong's Dharma image was swallowed by the Gate of Exile. But Taihao Hanwei never expected that even without using the Gate of Exile, Lin Sun could fight evenly with him with his own strength. This is the immortal supreme Tao that the master of the core dimension has been waiting for. Taihao Hanwei felt a slight chill in his heart. In the ninth heaven, there was no transcendent realm existence like Lin Sun. Never. Moreover, he was able to fight against the eternal realm's Dharma form of willpower. Based on this alone, who on the path of immortality could be his opponent? If this wasn't the supreme invincible Tao, what was it? And if such an immortal supreme was allowed to prove the eternal realm in the future, Taihao Hanwei suddenly took a deep breath. She didn't dare to think about it anymore. But when she looked at Lin Sun, her beautiful eyes were filled with intense, murderous intent. This kid still hasn't used that kind of magical power until now. Could it be that due to some reason, he is no longer able to use it? Thinking of this, Taihao Hanwei's attack became more and more fierce and terrifying. She had decided to completely destroy Lin Sun, even if she had to sacrifice this Dharma form of willpower. Boom! Her body was steaming with snow-white cold mist. This eternal power that was cold enough to freeze any immortal to death turned into peerlessly sharp white sword chi and whizzed out. Vast cold, immeasurable will. This was the eternal law that she had mastered. In other words, it could be called the true rule power. It contained the meaning of coldness and was extremely terrifying. If it was in the outside world, it could instantly freeze 100,000 miles and freeze a region to death. Moreover, after she executed this terrifying secret technique, the strength of her Dharma form was directly consumed by half. In an instant, the surface of Lin Sun's main body and the four Tao bodies were covered in a layer of dark blue frost, and the skin, tendons, flesh, blood, internal organs, and soul in his entire body seemed to be on the verge of being frozen. Subsequently, countless snow-white sword chi slashed over. Right when Lin Sun and his Tao bodies were about to be slashed apart. At this critical moment, bang, Lin Sun's main body stretched out as if he'd broken through the shackles of his body, causing the thick frost on his body to explode and spray in all directions. His entire body seemed as if it was on fire as it emanated a boundless glow of the Tao. It was a profundity that belonged to the Nirvana law, and it forcefully shattered the vast, cold, immeasurable will that contained the profundities of the Tao. Rumble. At the same time, the four Tao bodies struggled free from the ice seal as their entire bodies emanated completely different profundities of the great Tao, and they emanated a dazzling and resplendent glow. The omnipresent, vast, cold, immeasurable, what was like ice that was melted by the scorching sun, and it was completely obliterated. Even the vast expanse of white sword chi, which was aimed at Lin Sun and himself, exploded in the void like icy fireworks. Taihao Hanwei's expression changed completely. She couldn't believe that this attack consumed half of her willpower, and she used the ice law within it. That kind of power was enough to annihilate any immortal law power. But now, it was actually broken by Lin Sun, a young man in the transcendent late realm. This simply subverted some of her understanding of the way of cultivation. After all, the transcendent realm could only transcend the laws of heaven and earth. Only the eternal realm could control and use the power of the great Tao. But such an iron law was subverted in front of Lin Sun. A young man in the transcendent realm could actually contend with and dissolve the great Tao law. If this spread to the ninth heaven, those old guys in the eternal realm would probably not be able to sit still. This is the power of your Dharma, Will. It's just SOSO. Lin Sun spoke with a cold voice. In the past, when he fought with Tai Xian, he felt great pressure even when using the 5 Tao bodies together, and he was even injured. However, compared to Tai Xian, Taihao Hanwei was obviously inferior. The power of her Dharma was far less powerful than Tai Xian. Taihao Hanwei's pretty face changed, and her expression became ugly. Being confronted by a young man in the transcendent late realm already made her lose face. Now, she was being looked down upon like this, which made her feel like going crazy. If I were here, you wouldn't be qualified to bark like a dog, Taihao Hanwei said hatefully. Lin Sun revealed an undisguised sarcasm. If you were also in the transcendent realm like me, killing you would be like killing a chicken. Both comparisons were hypothetical, but it was obvious. However, Lin Sun's words were more lethal, because his assumption was that they were in the same realm, and everyone knew that under such circumstances, not to mention Taihao Hanwei, no one in the world would be Lin Sun's opponent at all. On the other hand, Taihao Hanwei's assumption was obviously relying on force to bully others. Taihao Hanwei also realized this, and couldn't help but feel embarrassed. But Lin Sun didn't intend to talk nonsense with her anymore. Boom! He used his strongest means to besiege Taihao Hanwei. He was brave and domineering like a demon. Taihao Hanwei had consumed half of her willpower before. Now that she was besieged and attacked by Lin Sun, she was suddenly suppressed. The body condensed by the Dharma began to fluctuate violently and gradually became blurred. Not long after, there was an earth-shattering explosion. Taihao Hanwei's Dharma was forcefully blown up. The dazzling rain of light scattered like a waterfall, illuminating the universe. Before being destroyed, she screamed angrily with deep hatred, threatening to twist Lin Sun's head off in the future. In this regard, Lin Sun naturally didn't care. Over the years, he had heard many threats that were even more excessive than this. Not good. How could it be? Even the Eternal Realm's Dharma was shattered. In the distance, Wang Daofeng and others, who were desperately bombarding the time seal, were all shocked at this moment. Their faces turned green and their minds were in a daze. This time, Lin Sun didn't utilize a forbidden divine ability, and he purely relied on his own combat strength to annihilate Taihao Hanwei's Dharma image. This was simply world-shocking, and anyone who saw this would probably be terrified. Guys, do you want to continue? In the distance, Lin Sun looked over. Wang Daofeng and others' faces turned pale, and their hearts were filled with indescribable disappointment and despair. How could they fight? Fight him! Someone gritted his teeth, roared, and rushed toward Lin Sun. Boom! Lin Sun didn't move, but the 4 Tao forms rushed up together and killed the old antique on the spot in a moment. Blood splashed like a waterfall. It was as clean as killing a chicken or a monkey. Many people trembled all over. They were all antiques who had lived for countless years, but at this moment, they strongly felt what it was like to be a fish on the chopping block. One person gritted his teeth and said fiercely, Lin Sun, if you do this, it will only cause a disaster and make Yuan's sect fall into eternal damnation. Before he finished his words, boom! Lin's son, who was in the distance, had already moved through the void and killed this person in a flash. The others were so shocked that they fled in all directions, and their faces turned pale. Who else? Lin's son asked. His indifferent voice resounded like a note of death. Those antiques all felt unprecedented humiliation and fear. On this trip, they gathered 40 transcendent realm great perfection existences, along with 3 eternal realm wills in Dharma Laksana. They came aggressively, thinking that they could easily kill Lin's son. Who would have thought that in the end, they were about to follow in the footsteps of Wang Daofeng and others? This blow was too heavy. Seeing that no one answered, Lin's son didn't hesitate anymore and launched the final bloodbath. Boom! In the time seal, the aura of destruction was surging and the light was shooting. From time to time, scarlet blood splashed, angry and mournful roars resounded, and the sound of bodies exploding appeared. There was in a flash. Wang Daofeng and the rest of the old fogies were all slaughtered. Chapter 3022. Smoke and dust dispersed. Lin's son stood in the time seal and looked around. There was no opponent left. The Tao doppelganger was cleaning up the spoils on the battlefield. Who, after a while, Lin's son exhaled a long breath of turbid air. This battle lasted until now. Except that Greenwood Tao physique was seriously injured and needed to rest for a period of time, there was no other loss. And the battle with Tai Hao Hanwei also made Lin's son realize that even in the eternal realm, not everyone's will was as strong as Tai Xian's. At least, he didn't even need to use his talent to kill Tai Hao Hanwei's will. After a while, the Tao doppelganger had counted the spoils. It had to be said that the treasures carried by the transcendent realm great perfection were almost related to the cultivation of this realm. Naturally, they could meet the needs of Lin's son's cultivation. With these, I don't have to worry about not enough cultivation resources before I reach the great perfection. Lin's son thought. He put away the Tao doppelganger and walked out of the time seal. Looking around, mountains and rivers collapsed, all things perished, and the world was a bleak and dilapidated scene. Before, there was a towering and magnificent giant city here. The city was prosperous and lively. Countless creatures lived in it. It was full of vitality and peace. But in an instant, all of this vanished completely, and it seemed as if it had never existed. All this brought too much shock to Lin's son. At this time, looking at this desolate scene, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Life and death were changeable. If cultivators acted recklessly and regarded all living beings as ants, the world was doomed to be plunged into misery and suffering. Lin's son knew very well that this was not the first time such a thing happened, and it was destined not to be the last time. The only thing he could do was to abide by his own heart, keep a trace of kindness and bottom line, and not do such heartless things. Suddenly, Lin's son's eyes narrowed. The next moment, his figure flashed and came to the ruins of the destroyed giant city. He picked up a broken jade pendant from the collapsed scorched earth. The jade pendant was incomplete, but there was a vibrant blood bead in it. The power of this jade pendant must have been released when the giant city was destroyed. That's why this drop of natal blood essence was preserved. Lin's son roughly guessed the truth. After pondering for a moment, he placed the broken jade pendant on his palm and circulated his immortal laws, sending wisps of it into the drop of blood. Immediately, the blood bead trembled as if it was boiling. Bang! The broken jade exploded, and a drop of blood appeared in Lin's son's palm, bathed in the law of immortality, as if it had undergone a reconstruction in nirvana. Gradually, the life force of the blood bead became stronger and stronger. Seems like it's really feasible. Lin's son's black eyes brightened with excitement. In the past, the power of the Nirvana order had been reshaping and repairing the power of order. For example, Wu Shuang, Little Ming, and Little Xian had all been nurtured and repaired by the Nirvana order. This was the first time that Lin's son tried to reshape and rebirth a drop of blood essence with the power of Nirvana. If he succeeded, it would mean that the power of the Nirvana order could even bring the dead back to life. For those who had reached the saint realm, even if there was only a drop of blood essence with vitality left, they could recover it with their own strength. But obviously, the drop of blood essence that Lin Sun picked up was not a cultivator. Although it had vitality, there was no aura of the Great Way in the blood. In short, it was left by a mortal. It was utterly impossible for any cultivator to save him. But nourished by the power of the Nirvana order, this drop of blood essence was showing a shocking change. The transformation of a human. Clatter before long. The drop of blood essence began to tumble and grow larger. Gradually, wrapped by the Nirvana order, it turned into an illusory young figure. At this moment, Lin Sun felt an indescribable joy. Cultivators had the ability to turn stone into gold, but almost no one could bring the dead back to life and reshape a life. Even someone as powerful as the Eternal Realm couldn't save a mortal who had been dead for a long time, because it involved the supreme mystery of fate. But now Lin Sun realized that the Nirvana order seemed to have such a taboo method. Of course, strictly speaking, this drop of blood essence contained vitality and was preserved. It couldn't be said to be really extinct, but it should be known that this was the blood essence of a mortal. To be able to save him was already going against heaven and changing fate. Soon, in Lin Sun's field of vision, a little girl about 6 or 7 years old with a braid of goat horns appeared. Her big eyes were full of confusion, and she said in a daze, "Where's Dad?" The little girl's memory was still there, so Lin Sun instantly sensed what she was thinking in her mind. Her name was Tang Jiang, 6 years old. Since childhood, her body was weak, and she couldn't cultivate. Thanks to her father, who loved her dearly and took her with him no matter where he went. But tonight in the city, her father had protected her under his body at the moment of the calamity. He had even stuffed his life-saving jade pendant into her bosom, and her father died in the disaster. Originally, it was impossible for Tang Jiang to survive. After all, such a disaster was too terrifying. But at this moment, under the nourishment of the Nirvana law, she was reborn, her body was reconstructed, and she came back to life. Lin Sun also saw the scene of the father protecting his daughter. It was a completely subconscious action, and it made him feel indescribably complicated. "Uncle, where is this? Where's my father?" Tang Jiang opened her dark eyes wide and asked in a clear voice. She didn't know that her father and the city had long been destroyed. Lin Sun felt pity in his heart and said softly, "Your father said to let you follow me to cultivate in the future. He hopes that you can learn skill." Tang Jiang said blankly, "But I can't cultivate." Lin Sun rubbed her little head and said with a smile, "If I say you can, then you can." Tang Jiang said in surprise, "Really?" Lin Sun said seriously, "I'm not lying." Tang Jiang said, "Then when can I see my father?" Lin Sun felt sour in his heart, but he said with a smile, "I'll tell you when you learn a skill in the future." Tang Jiang nodded firmly, her little face full of determination. Lin Sun took a deep breath and said with a solemn expression, "Little girl, from today onwards, you are my second disciple. Remember, your master's name is Lin Sun, also known as Dao Yuan, the 50th descendant of Fangsu Mountain, the deputy pavilion master of Yuan sect. In the future, your master will not let you suffer like today again." After saying that, he picked up Tang Jiang, put her on his shoulder, and strode away. Many years later, whenever he thought of today's scene, the famous Shang Huang, who is respected by billions of living beings, would show a look of nostalgia. It was her master who gave her a new life. It was also her master who taught her the Tao. She used the name Shang to remember her late father. Only when she was with her master would she be Tang Jiang. Of course, these are all things in the future. On the way out, Lin Sun placed Tang Jiang in the abyssal sword cauldron. He decided to leave the 6th heaven. After this battle, the 10 immortal giants of the 8 heavens suffered heavy casualties. The 10 immortal giants of the 8 heavens domains had suffered heavy casualties. It was impossible for them to send more people. There was no point in staying. On the same day, Lin Sun left the sixth heaven. It was impossible for such an earth-shattering battle to not leak a trace of information. Soon, the news about the battle between Lin Sun and the Ten Clan Battle Alliance spread throughout the sixth heaven, once again setting off a great sensation. At the same time, the bad news also reached the eighth heaven. Wang family. In the main hall. It's been 3 days. Why hasn't there been any news yet? Fu Chaolan, the patriarch of the Fu clan, frowned. He felt an inexplicable anxiety in his heart. After sending Wang Daofeng and the other elders to the sixth heaven, he and the patriarchs of the other immortal giants have been waiting in the Wang family. But until now, no news has been sent back. Brother Fu, don't be impatient. If Lin Sun hides, it will take some time to find his trace. Someone said with a smile. Yes, let's wait for the good news. The other patriarchs seemed very relaxed. This time, the 10 immortal giants dispatched 40 transcendent realm great perfection existences, plus 3 eternal realm wills and dharma images. Such a lineup is enough to sweep away the other immortal giants. If they can't capture Lin Sun, it will be a joke. Everyone, don't take it lightly. If the power of Yuan sect is also involved, I'm afraid it will take a lot of effort to capture Lin Sun. Wang Zhongtian said with a smile. Although he said so, he still looked very calm. He was even sure that even Yuan sect didn't expect that their 10-clan battle alliance would make such a big move. This was enough to catch the other party off guard. Oh, even if Yuan sect sends all the deputy pavilion masters together this time, I'm afraid it's like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Someone sneered. Come on, let's drink. Wang Zhongtian raised his glass. At this moment, a panic shout rang out from outside the hall. How dare you? Patriarch, no, not good. All the seniors who went to the sixth heaven this time, all met with disaster. This sentence was like a bolt from the blue, making the 10 patriarchs in the hall stunned. The atmosphere suddenly became extremely depressed. What did you say? Say it again. Wang Zhongtian seemed to be in disbelief. Outside the hall, an old servant knelt on the ground and said in a trembling voice, Patriarch, they are all dead. All dead. No one survived. Boom. The wine glass in Wang Zhongtian's hand exploded, but he didn't seem to notice it at all. He slumped in the chair, staring blankly. Looking at the other 9 patriarchs, some were shocked and angry, some were trembling, their eyes were red, and their breathing was heavy. There were even some who were so angry that their vision turned black, and they coughed out a mouthful of blood due to the rage. It's over, someone murmured. His face was ashen, as if he had lost all his strength. The whole hall was filled with a dull and depressing atmosphere. This bad news was undoubtedly a bolt from the blue for any of the immortal giants, and it was no different from the sky collapsing. P.S. Say 3 things. 1. I wish all the teachers a happy holiday. 2. Goldfish has been adding chapters for 3 days in a row. In these 3 days, he didn't ask for monthly votes even once. As a result, only a few people voted, who said that Goldfish would get monthly votes as long as he added chapters. Stand up. I promise I won't beat you to death. 3. I will continue to add chapters tonight, but it will be very late. Chapter 3023. Among the 10 immortal giants, the Wang family was the most powerful. However, for countless years, the Wang family only had 9 transcendent realm great perfection existences. Many years ago, Wang Zhongyuan was killed by Lin Sun. Not long ago, Wang Daoxing also died in Lin Sun's hands in the sixth heaven. Now, the 4 transcendent realm great perfection existences led by Wang Daofeng were all killed. This also meant that the Wang family, known as the first immortal giant, now only had 3 transcendent realm great perfection existences left. More than half of the top figures were killed or injured. This was not only a great loss of vitality, but it had even shaken the foundation of the Wang family. It was true that the Wang family still had many transcendent realm existences, but it was almost impossible to produce another batch of transcendent realm great perfection existences in a short period of time. This was also the reason why Patriarch Wang Zhongtian lost his composure after hearing the bad news. The first immortal giant, the Wang family, was in such a state. It was conceivable how serious the situation of the other 9 immortal giants was. The Fu family was the most miserable. Originally, their clan had 7 transcendent realm, great perfection existences. But now, there was only 1 left. The other immortal giants were mostly the same, with only 2 or 3 remaining. It was no exaggeration to say that in these 2 battles in the 6th heaven, Lin Sun was equivalent to relying on his own strength to severely injure the 10 immortal giants, causing them to suffer a heavy blow. This was the reason why these patriarchs lost their composure. Without enough transcendent realm, great perfection existences, the situation of the immortal giants in the 8th heaven would become precarious. Brother Wang, I will leave first. Fu Chaolan immediately got up and left with an ashen face. After such a tragic incident, he must return to the clan to personally preside over the overall situation. Otherwise, the clan would be in a panic and cause various disturbances. Immediately afterward, the other patriarchs also got up and left one after another. Each of their faces was gloomy and gloomy. Soon, only Wang Zhongtian was left. He sat there in a daze, his expression fluctuating. After a long time, he let out a long sigh. It's over. Wang Zhongtian knew that from today onwards, the 10-clan war alliance only existed in name. The 10 immortal giants could no longer gather their strength to seek revenge on the Yuan sect. What's more serious is that from today on, the major forces entrenched in the 8th heaven have to protect themselves. Wang Zhongtian had a premonition that when Lin Sun found out about the situation of the 10 undying giants, he would definitely not remain indifferent. Men, Wang Zhongtian said with a hoarse voice. What can I do for you, my lord? An old servant appeared outside the hall. Pass down my order. Summon all the clansmen scattered in the outside world. They must all return to the clan within 3 days at the latest. In addition, without my order, no one is allowed to go out without permission. Otherwise, the clan will punish them severely. Hearing this, the old servant solemnly accepted the order. Yes. Go. Wang Zhongtian waved his hand. Until the figure of the old servant left, he let out a long sigh of relief. He decided to set off today and go to the 9th heaven. Whether it is to deal with Yuan sect or Lin Sun, these great forces of the 8th heaven are doomed to be useless. Only the gods of the 9th heaven can truly solve the problem. However, Wang Zhongtian wasn't sure in his heart, because he knew very well that within 1,000 years, the calamity of the era will come. If there is no important matter, the great figures of the 9th Heaven Eternal God clan will not come to the mortal world in person. No matter what, I have to give it a try. Wang Zhongtian gritted his teeth and made a decision. Spiritual sect. In a hall. Senior sister. Chung Yu's delicate figure rushed into the hall and said excitedly, Junior brother won, a complete victory. Ruosu was talking with Shueya, Pu Zhen, and other descendants of Fang Siyuan. Hearing this, her eyes lit up. What did the news say? Shueya said happily. Chung Yu's voice was gentle and crisp. In 2 battles, a total of 50 transcendent realm great perfection powerhouses in the 10-clan battle alliance were annihilated, and they were all killed by Junior Brother. It is said that Junior Brother even destroyed 5 eternal realm wills and Dharma images. Hiss! Everyone present couldn't help but gasp, shocked by this number. Junior Brother has become so powerful now, Shueya said, clicking his tongue. Back then, he and Pu Zhen escaped from the Taiyu True Realm and were chased by Buddhist Supreme Shi Yi and others. Finally, when they hid in the Cloud Guard House, they met Lin Sun by chance. At that time, Lin Sun was only in the Heavenly Longevity Realm. Now, only a few years had passed. Not only had Lin Sun achieved Transcendent Late Realm, but he had also annihilated a total of 50 Transcendent Realm Great Perfection existences. Even 5 Eternal Realm Wills and Dharma images were destroyed by him. Such a battle record was enough to shock the world. Ruosu said softly, Don't forget, Junior Brother is the lotus that the Master has been waiting for. What he seeks is the power of the immortal supreme. Only those who can achieve this are worthy of the title of supreme. Shuya had a strange expression. But even if he is the supreme on the immortal path, who dares to imagine that he can annihilate eternal realm wills and dharma images? Hu Zhen, who had been silent, asked, "So, Junior Brother's current cultivation is enough to surpass the descendants of Fong, Siyuan Mountain?" His words made everyone look at each other, and their emotions became complicated. Back then, little Junior Brother was so weak, but the current him was already stronger than them, senior brothers and sisters. Not necessarily, Ruosa muttered. Whether Junior Brother's combat prowess can be ranked first among the descendants of Fong Siyuan Mountain depends on whether Senior Brother has already achieved eternal Tao. Everyone was startled. Third Senior Sister, do you think that after being trapped in the Taiyu True Realm for so many years, Senior Brother might have already achieved eternal Tao? Xingyu couldn't help but ask. Ruosa smiled and shook her head. I don't know. But with my understanding of Senior Brother, as long as there's a chance to achieve eternal Tao, he won't miss it. Senior Sister, the 10 immortal giants have suffered heavy casualties. Why don't we take this opportunity to go to the 8th heaven? Shuya suggested with a burning gaze. The others were also tempted. At present, the 10 immortal giants have indeed suffered great losses and are in an extremely difficult situation. If they go there now, it's not impossible to flatten their lair. Don't forget, the Zen religion and the sorcerer religion haven't acted yet. Compared to the 10 immortal giants, these 2 ancestral courts are the most dangerous. Ruosu's expression became serious. I thought that their forces would also appear in the 6th heaven, but obviously they didn't do so. The more they do so, the more we have to be vigilant. Are we just going to wait and do nothing? Shuya frowned, feeling somewhat unwilling. As the senior brother, they have been watching their junior brother fight alone. Although their junior brother won a great victory, making them feel particularly proud, they couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable in their hearts. Don't worry, the time to decide the winner hasn't come yet. We have been enduring for so many years, there's no need to be anxious. Ruosu said warmly. I know that everyone wants to help junior brother, but as I discussed with him before, we don't need to do anything. As long as junior brother can fight with peace of mind, it will be the greatest help to him. And when the time is right, there will naturally be a time for us to take action. Shuya sighed softly. I'm worried that when the time comes, junior brother will have already swept away all his enemies. Everyone couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Ruosa couldn't help but be stunned. Thinking about it carefully, it was really possible. No matter what, let's see how the situation changes. Ruosa took a deep breath and said softly, not to mention Shuya and the others. Even she felt a little guilty in her heart. She also wished that she could take action as soon as possible and fight side by side with Lin's son. However, Ruosa knew that once they took action, it was very likely that they would be targeted by the sorcerer religion and the Zen religion. There would be too many variables. If these variables affected Lin's son, it would undoubtedly be the worst situation. Therefore, they could only wait for a really suitable opportunity. For example, when the sorcerer religion and the Zen religion couldn't help but take action. Yuan sect, Central Hall, Xian Failing, Dugi Yong, Fong Daoping, and the other vice pavilion masters all let out a long breath, looked at each other, and couldn't help but burst into laughter. The laughter full of joy, and relaxation echoed in the hall for a long time. This boy is simply invincible. After a while, Xian Failing patted his thigh and sighed with emotion. They were also the first to know the news of the destruction of Wang Daofeng and the other 40 old antiques. For them, this was simply a blessing from the sky. All the previous worries and concerns were swept away, and they couldn't help but feel excited and shocked. Although they didn't know the course of the battle, they knew that Lin's son could be called the first person under the eternal realm since he could achieve this step. Throughout the whole world, there was no second person like him. Even these old guys could only sigh at their inferiority. I'm afraid that the 10 great immortal giants are already in a panic. Dugi Yong looked up to the sky and laughed, feeling that there was not a single part of his body that was not happy. The others also laughed from ear to ear. When they first learned that Lin Sun was going to fight alone, they were all worried. How could they have imagined that Lin Sun alone could make a mess of the Ten Clan War Alliance and make them suffer heavy losses? They were all sure that after these two battles, the Ten Clan War Alliance, which was established to deal with Yuan's sect, only existed in name. The 10 great immortal giants no longer had the ability to fight against Yuan's sect. What makes you so happy, seniors? Suddenly, a clear voice resounded outside the hall. Xian, Failing, and the others stiffened, and then subconsciously stood up and looked out of the hall. A tall figure was suddenly standing there. He wore white clothes, and he seemed indifferent, extraordinary, and graceful as before. Who else could it be but Lin Sun? For a moment, Xian, Failing, and the others were all excited. After a while, they couldn't help but laugh and go forward to greet him in person. Thank you, everyone, for your monthly votes. I will send them to you. Chapter 3024. The Central Hall. The table was filled with delicacies. Lin Sun's return was solemnly received by the 7 deputy pavilion masters, led by Xian, Failing. At the banquet, Xian, Failing, and the others also asked about the details of the battle that happened in the 6th heaven. Lin Sun didn't hide anything and answered every question. For a time, exclamations sounded incessantly. The more they learned about the details, the more they trembled, and the more they realized how heaven-defying Lin Sun's current combat power is. Especially when they learned that Lin Sun destroyed the will of Taihao Hanwei with his own strength. The group of old monsters were stunned. Their eyes widened, and they looked at each other in dismay. It took a long time for them to recover, but when they looked at Lin Sun, their eyes became strange, making Lin Sun uncomfortable. He quickly changed the topic. Seniors, I plan to go to the 8th heaven, Lin Sun said. This sentence silenced the originally lively atmosphere. I expected this, but this time, you can't make decisions on your own, Xian, Failing said with a serious expression. I know that the 10 immortal giants are in a precarious situation. As long as you seize this opportunity, it is enough to give them a fatal blow. But if you really go like this, I'm afraid you will encounter an unexpected disaster. Lin Sun's eyes narrowed slightly. What do you mean? Fang Daoping said warmly. Behind the 10 immortal giants, there is an eternal god clan. For example, behind the Wang family stands the eternal god clan Song family, and behind the Zhu family stands the eternal god clan Minamoto family. This time, the 10 immortal giants suffered such a crushing defeat. They have already used the foundation of their clans. How could they not guess that you will probably attack the 8th heaven? There is no doubt at all. The 10 immortal giants must have acted immediately and asked for help from the eternal gods of the 9th heaven. Dugi Yong on the side also said, since ancient times, only the 8th heaven has a path to the 9th heaven. If the 9th heaven is the lair of the eternal gods, then the 8th heaven is the gate to this lair, and the 10 immortal giants are the dogs guarding the gate. It doesn't matter if you beat the dogs, but if you kill the dogs, who will guard the gate for the eternal gods in the future? If you go to the 8th heaven this time, it is very likely that you'll be attacked by the gods of the 9th heaven. This is the most serious problem. As soon as Dugi Yong finished speaking, Xian, Failing, chimed in. It's true that the calamity of an era will come within 1,000 years, and the Eternal God Clan is currently busy preparing for it. But if something happens that threatens their safety, how can they just stand by and watch? At the side, Yu Xing added, moreover, the shaman cult and Zen cult have been biding their time. This is the threat that we should be most vigilant against. Seeing that Yuan Wuqian, Tong Xiaoyun, and Zhang Qianxi were about to speak, Lin Sun hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, Seniors, I understand. Then, have you decided to go to the 8th heaven? Xian, Failing, said. Other old monsters also looked at Lin Sun, as if they would continue to dissuade him endlessly as long as he dared say yes. Lin Sun said helplessly, I'll listen to you. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. Actually, after listening to their analysis, Lin Sun had already realized that if they wanted to seize the opportunity to uproot the 10 undying giants, it was already impossible, because there were still 2 greater threats. One was the power of the shaman cult and Zen cult. The other was the eternal god clan of the ninth heaven. Once he went to the eighth heaven, these two threats would definitely take the opportunity to attack. Now there are only about 20 years left before pavilion leader Yu Beihai proves his Tao. During this period of time, you should stay in the Yuan sect and concentrate on cultivation. Du Guiyong suggested. Lin Sun nodded and then asked, Seniors, if the calamity of an era comes, how should we resolve it? Xian Failing and the others fell into silence. After a while, Xian Failing said softly, It's not too late to talk about this after pavilion leader Yu Beihai proves his Tao. For the Yuan sect, the matter of Yu Beihai proving his Tao is the most crucial at the moment. At that time, the power of the Yuan sect will be affected by the eternal calamity, and the entire Yuan realm will lose its protection. Under such circumstances, once the power of the shaman cult and Zen cult comes, an unpredictable war is bound to break out. Seeing this, Lin Sun no longer asked. After the banquet, Lin Sun went straight to the ninth peak. When he saw Lin Sun appear, Mo Lanshan greeted him with a big smile and cupped his hands. Mo Lanshan, the peak master of the ninth peak, greets Deputy Pavilion Leader Lin. Lin Sun smiled bitterly. Senior, do we still need to adhere to these etiquettes? After the great purge of the Yuan sect, Qin Wuyu, the peak master of the ninth peak, had made an exception and promoted him to an elder in the Yuan Su Pavilion. The position of peak master was taken over by Mo Lanshan. Mo Lanshan said with a smile, Since you don't need to adhere to these etiquettes, why do you still call me senior? Just call me old Mo in the future. Lin Sun readily agreed. Next, Mo Lanshan welcomed Lin Sun into the hall and personally made tea for Lin Sun. Then he asked, Brother, aren't you practicing in seclusion? Why did you suddenly come to the ninth peak? Is there anything I can help you with? Lin Sun didn't hide it and said, I have a disciple who is only 6 years old this year. She hasn't cultivated yet. In the next period of time, I may continue to practice in seclusion, so I have no time to teach her cultivation. So I specially come here, hoping that she can cultivate in the ninth peak for a period of time. Mo Lanshan was surprised. When did you go out to accept a disciple? A few days ago, Lin Sun said. He didn't explain too much. The matter about his battle with the Tin Clan Fighting League was still blocked by Xian Failing, and no one in the Yuan sect knew about it. Mo Lanshan didn't ask any more questions and said with a smile, Don't worry, just leave it to me. Lin Sun waved his sleeve, and Tang Jiang appeared in front of him. The little girl looked around curiously and asked, Master, where is this? Lin Sun said with a smile, This is your future home. Little girl, this is Peak Master Mo. From today on, you will follow him to cultivate. Tang Jiang said anxiously, Master, don't you want me anymore? Mo Lanshan said with a smile, Your master is going to practice in seclusion for a period of time. When he comes out, you can return to him to cultivate. Tang Jiang was still worried and looked at Lin Sun eagerly. Lin Sun smiled and rubbed her little head, saying, Peak Master Mo is right. Master does need to practice in seclusion for a period of time. Tang Jiang breathed a sigh of relief and said in a clear voice, I will listen to Master. Lin Sun and Mo Lanshan looked at each other and laughed. From this day on, Tang Jiang stayed in the ninth peak to cultivate. She was only 6 years old, but she was welcomed by all the descendants of the ninth peak, especially when they learned that she was Lin Sun's last disciple. Even some core disciples were envious. After returning to the cave residence, Lin Sun sat cross-legged. There are only about 20 years left before pavilion leader Yu Beihai proves the eternal Tao, and my cultivation is still far from reaching the great perfection of this realm. Lin Sun fell into deep thought. Since he had decided to give up going to the eighth heaven, Lin Sun began to focus on his own cultivation. There was no shortcut to reach the great perfection from the transcendent late stage. For example, in the first immortal giant Wang family, there are hundreds of transcendent realm existences, but only 9 people have truly entered the great perfection of this realm for countless years. From this, it can be seen how difficult it is to reach the great perfection of this realm. However, Lin Sun was not worried about this. He did not lack cultivation resources in his hands. The only thing he lacked was time. 20 years or so. If he were to devote himself to cultivation, it should be enough for his cultivation to reach the level of perfection. There is also the Nirvana order. Now I have only refined about 60% of it. Lin Sun remembered the scene when he was in the sixth heaven and fought with the old antiques of the Ten-Clan War Alliance. It could be said that his immortal law, which was integrated with 60% of the Nirvana order, played a vital role in the battle. This was also the foundation for him to display the invincible power of the Supreme. At that time, even the Guanghan immeasurable will, which contained the rule power of Taihao Hanwei, was dissolved by his immortal law. It was conceivable how terrifying the power of the Nirvana order was. To a certain extent, the immortal law that Lin Sun now controlled could shake the rules of heaven and earth. This was only the power of 60% of the Nirvana order. If he refined all of it, it was bound to be even more incredible. However, Lin Sun also knew that in the next few years, even if he devoted all his time and energy to refining the Nirvana order, he might not be able to completely refine it. First, there was not enough time. Second, it was really too difficult to refine the Nirvana order. He had been in seclusion for 55 years before, but he only refined 60% of it. Lin Sun was not in a hurry. In his opinion, it was enough to be able to completely refine the Nirvana order before proving the eternal way. There is also the talent power of the Blade of Time and the Seal of Time. I need to further tap its potential. Soon, Lin Sun remembered the talent power he had mastered. The mystery of the Gate of Exile had been thoroughly explored by him to the extreme. However, he hadn't fully grasped the mysteries of the Blade of Time and the Seal of Time, especially the Blade of Time. This divine power was inherited from the Lord of Tongtian. Lin Sun had hardly used it in the battles over the years. But this divine power was also at the third stage. If it was used properly, its power was bound to be more powerful. Needless to say, the Seal of Time's defensive power was absolutely the best in the world. But for Lin Sun, its coverage was limited after all. It could only cover a space of thousands of meters. Back then, the Seal of Time displayed by the Eternal Night Divine Emperor could completely cover the entire flowing light forbidden area. Even the real eternal realm couldn't shake it. That was the real power of the Seal of Time. Chapter 3025. From this day on, Lin Sun began to practice in isolation. And 10 years passed in a hurry. On this day, Xia Ji, who had been sleeping in the abyssal sword cauldron, woke up. For Lin Sun, this was naturally a great joy. On the same day, he got busy cooking all kinds of delicacies for Xia Ji and accompanied her to have a hearty meal. While eating, Lin Sun noticed that after this closed-door training, Lin Sun's aura had obviously changed completely from before. What realm have you reached this time? Lin Sun was curious. Xia Ji got up and looked at Lin Sun with her clear eyes. Have a try. Lin Sun clang. The white bone spear had already appeared in Xia Ji's slender and translucent hands. Lin Sun's cheek muscles twitched. He wanted to slap himself. Why couldn't he help talking about this? Come on, let me see if you have made progress over the years. Xia Ji's voice was as beautiful as the sound of nature, but her words were full of provocation. Lin Sun couldn't sit still. Which man would be afraid of this kind of thing? In these 10 years, he would reach the Nirvana realm. Now that he'd refined the order to 70%, his cultivation was faintly showing signs of breaking through to the perfection stage. Even his grasp of the Blade of Time had reached an extreme state where he could control it as easily as if it was his own arm. It was also at this time that Lin Sun finally understood how terrifying the power of the Time Blade was. Once it was used, the rules of time between heaven and earth would reverse as if falling into stagnation, which was very similar to the Forbidden Passing. The difference was that the Time Blade was like a Taoist weapon, which could be used for a long time in the battle. Lin Sun had tested that the Time Blade could last for about a quarter of an hour. That was to say, as long as the enemy was swept by the power of the Time Blade within a quarter of an hour, his lifespan and cultivation would be taken away in an instant. In short, it was to reverse time and cut off the cultivation. Of course, Lin Sun would not use this kind of means on Xie Ji. He stood up and kindly reminded Xie Ji, "Don't go too far, don't." Before he finished his words, Xie Ji stabbed the spear in her hand without hesitation. Obviously, she thought he talked too much nonsense. Boom. The spear was simple, direct, and filled with a profound and obscure aura. It seemed to be piercing over in a straight line. It seemed to be omnipresent and impossible to see through. Most horrifying of it all was that the spear was filled with a strange energy, and it seemed as if one would fall into the strange torrent of energy upon being slightly tainted by it and be completely lost. Lin Sun's eyes narrowed. He dared not neglect it and exerted all his strength at once. Boom! He formed seals with his palms and fingers and faced the attack head-on. A strange scene appeared. The spear was right in front of him, but it disappeared in an instant, which made Lin's attack fail to hit its target. Not good. Lin dodged subconsciously. Whoosh! The clothes on his shoulder were torn to shreds and scattered like butterflies. The white-boned spear barely grazed the skin of his shoulder. Lin Sun broke out in a cold sweat. If he hadn't dodged in time, this attack would have pierced through his chest. "What kind of great path power is this?" asked Lin Sun. "Cause and effect, the power of fate," Xie Ji said in a clear voice. As she spoke, she flicked her wrist, and the white-boned spear pierced through the air. Lin Sun didn't have time to think. He concentrated and operated the immortal law to the extreme. In an instant, a mighty river appeared in his senses. It gushed out of nothingness and flowed into the boundless depths with no end in sight. Countless obscure and mysterious energy waves rolled and surged in this long river, giving off an unfathomable feeling. Lin Sun immediately knew that this was the aura of fate. It was condensed by the way of karma, and when Xie Ji displayed it with the spear, it seemed like a simple attack, but in fact, it was as unpredictable as fate. Boom! While Lin Sun sensed it, he also attacked without hesitation. He condensed sword chi with the immortal law and slashed down in the void. Clang! The sword chi collided with the white-boned spear, and in Lin Sun's senses, the mighty river of fate shook violently and dissipated. "You've made great progress. You can actually block this level of power." Xie Ji seemed a little surprised. She waved the spear and attacked again. Lin Sun had completely calmed down. The power of fate was obscure and mysterious indeed, and it was impossible to guard against when utilized in battle. Ordinary people were bound to be unable to block it. It was very simple to deal with it. There was no other way but to fight it head-on. It was like fighting the shapeless heavens, or like a cultivator overcoming a tribulation under heavenly punishment. There was no way to think about it, no way to retreat, and one could only face it head-on. If one couldn't face it head-on, then one was bound to die. This feeling was indescribably strange, and it was dangerous to an unbelievable extent. Fortunately, Lin Sun sensed that his immortal law was enough to deal with Xie Ji's attack. At the end of the day, the way of karma was a type of grand Tao law. As for the profundities of order, it was enough to deal with and resolve all of this. Clang, clang, clang. Lin Sun's abode was comparable to a small world, so they didn't have to worry about being restrained when they fought. For a time, the sounds of battle colliding resounded incessantly. Fortunately, both of them tried their best to control the fluctuations of the battle, so it didn't cause any damage to the abode world. After a while, Xie Ji's attack suddenly changed. The white-boned spear was filled with the power of time, and her fighting method also changed accordingly. However, Lin Sun's talent of devouring abyss was originally a kind of use of the power of time, so he was not afraid of this kind of power, seeing that she couldn't do anything to Lin for a long time. Xie Ji suddenly took a deep breath and said, "Lin, I've comprehended a forbidden art related to fate in my breakthrough this time. It's called Calamity of Dust. Do you want to have a try?" A forbidden skill related to fate. Lin Sun shook his head at once. What a joke. The supreme grand Tao of fate was most feared by cultivators. Even the eternal realm didn't dare to say that they could control their own fate. Seeing this, Xie Ji directly put away the spear and said directly, If so, then I can't beat you. Obviously, the calamity of dust was her strongest trump card. If she didn't use it, she couldn't defeat Lin Sun with her current cultivation. But Lin Sun was shocked. He could be said to be invincible on the path of immortality, and even the eternal realm's will and Dharma image couldn't threaten him anymore. But Xia Zhi's current combat strength wasn't much inferior to his. Indeed, he still had many innate divine abilities that he hadn't exerted, and he hadn't even used the great doubt doppelganger. But Xia Zhi also had a trump card. Moreover, it was related to the Tao of Fate. How could Lin Sun not be surprised? In the end, Lin Sun was clearly aware that rather than saying that Xia Zhi had been cultivating all these years, it could be said that she had been refining the power sealed in her body by her original body. For her, cultivation realm wasn't important. She only needed to ceaselessly absorb the power of her original body, and her combat strength would continue to transform and improve until she recovered to the height that her original body had attained. Similarly, the reason why Xia Zhi's combat strength was so heaven-defying wasn't because of how strong her foundation was, but because she had mastered the unparalleled profundities of the great Tao. For example, time, karma, and fate. When such a supreme energy of the great Tao was utilized in battle, the power it erupted was simply unimaginably terrifying. If he didn't grasp the nirvana, the mystery of order, it would probably be difficult to resist the attack from Xia Zhi. Xia Zhi, I still need to concentrate on cultivation for a period of time. After the battle, Lin Sun talked about business. If you feel bored, you can go out for a walk as long as you don't leave the primordial realm. I'll accompany you, Xia Zhi said without hesitation. Lin Sun was startled and said, all right. Except for him, Xia Zhi didn't care about anything in this world. By the way, I accepted a disciple a few years ago. Now that it's been 10 years, do you want to accompany me to see her? Lin Sun said. Xia Zhi naturally had no objection. The ninth peak. In a refining Tao field, a girl in black was practicing martial arts. She was about 15 or 16 years old, with fair and delicate skin and a delicate and beautiful face. Her black hair was tied into a ponytail, and her eyes were as bright as stars. She held a bronze spear in her hand, and her movements were swift and fierce. Her whole body was filled with the aura of the king of sages. The girl was Tang Jiang. 10 years of time was like a snap of a finger to Lin Sun, but Tang Jiang had already transformed from a child with pigtails into a graceful young lady. Her brows were filled with valiant and heroic bearing, bright and beautiful. Not far away, many descendants of the ninth peak were watching and applauding from time to time. Practically all of these disciples had watched Tang Jiang grow up, and they'd treated her like a younger sister and doted on her. In these past few years, they practically guided her along the right path and passed on the Tao. Coupled with Mo Lanshan's generous use of various cultivation resources, Tang Jiang had transformed from a little girl who didn't know how to cultivate into a king of sages with a strong foundation in just 10 years. Mo Lanshan had purposely suppressed Tang Jiang's cultivation progress. Otherwise, she would have broken through faster. After all, this was the Yuan sect, one of the 4 great ancestral halls in the eternal realm. It was a sacred place that every cultivator dreamed of entering. In the past, if one wanted to enter the Yuan sect, he or she had to wait for an opportunity and go through the entrance examination before he or she could become a descendant of the Yuan sect. Tang Jiang was undoubtedly a special case. With the companionship of the ninth peak, the weakest descendant of the Juxian sect, and the care of a peak master like Mo Lanshan, it would be strange if her cultivation did not improve by leaps and bounds. From afar, when Lin Sun saw Tang Jiang, whose appearance had changed greatly, he could not help but be in a trance. 10 years had undoubtedly changed Tang Jiang too much. Greetings, Deputy Pavilion Master Lin. Suddenly, many successors in the vicinity of the refining Tao field saw Lin Sun's figure. They all looked solemn and bowed from afar. Everyone's face was filled with awe and respect from the bottom of their hearts. Tang Jiang, who was practicing martial arts, also stopped what she was doing. She suddenly turned around and looked at the familiar figure in the distance. Her beautiful eyes could not help but widen. After a while, she hurriedly bowed and said, "Disciple Tang Jiang greets Master." I will continue to update tonight. Chapter 3026. 10 years had passed, and Tang Jiang often thought of her master who brought her into Yuan's sect. She was no longer an ignorant child. She already knew how high her master's status was in the Yuan sect, and how great his influence was. Even peak Master Amo, who doted on her the most, would show great respect when talking about her master. She also knew a lot about her master's past, such as how he entered Yuan's sect as the first and how he rose step by step over the years. He was like a legend. Occasionally, Tang Jiang even felt like she was dreaming. When she was a child, she was considered to be unable to cultivate because of her weak body. But who could have thought that in just 10 years, she had been reborn? Her master was a legendary figure whose name shook the world and was as graceful as a god. Everything seemed so unreal. Tang Jiang was afraid that when she woke up from the dream, she would find that everything was fake. Good progress. In the distance, Lin Sun and Xia Ji walked side by side. Looking at Tang Jiang, who had grown to his shoulder, Lin Sun said, "In the future, you should stick to your heart. Don't bite off more than you can chew and belittle yourself." Tang Jiang nodded hard. "I'll listen to you, Master. These are some of my previous cultivation experiences. You can take them and figure them out." Lin Sun handed a prepared jade slip to Tang Jiang. "Remember, this is my cultivation experience. It may not be suitable for you." Tang Jiang quickly took it with both hands and showed a bright smile. "Master, you are the best to me. I will not let you down in the future." Lin Sun smiled. "Cultivation is your own business. As long as you enjoy it, I won't be disappointed no matter how high your future achievements are. Don't put any pressure on yourself." Next, Lin Sun met Mo Lanshan and chatted for a while before returning with Xia Ji. "There's something wrong with the girl's birth destiny." On the way, Xia Ji suddenly said. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes. "What did you see?" Xia Ji said, "In my perception, her past karma seems to have been erased. She feels like a dead person, and all traces of the past have disappeared. Only in the past 10 years, new karma has been born, and her fate has been completely reversed and can't be predicted." Lin Sun was shocked as he recalled the scene when he brought Tang Jiang back from the dead. Without a doubt, Tang Jiang had already died back then, so the karma on her body had been eliminated. However, it was also because of him that a brand new destiny had been opened for her. And all of this was because of nirvana, bestowed by order. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Lin couldn't help asking. Xia Ji said without hesitation, "Of course it's a good thing. It means that her future cultivation will be completely controlled by herself. Whether she lives or dies, it all depends on her luck. You also know that fate is very mysterious. When you change your fate in the heaven accessing place, your fate was reversed. For that little girl, her experience was the same as yours." She paused for a moment and said, "Fate is usually similar for ordinary cultivators. No matter how high one's attainments in the Grand Tao are, if one isn't able to attain eternity, then one's fate is bound to be restrained by the various calamities and tribulations on the path towards the Grand Tao. Fortunately, I can resist it with my own spirit and resolve it. The unfortunate ones will almost all perish in the calamity." Speaking of this, there was a trace of confusion in Xia Ji's clear eyes. "It's easy to say. In fact, until now, I still don't know the real mystery of the Grand Tao of Destiny," Lin Sun said with a smile. "Don't worry, you can always understand its mystery step by step in the future." In fact, he couldn't calm down in his heart. Nirvana? Order could not only bring the dead back to life, but also cut off a person's past fate, reshape his fate, and make him realize the transformation of changing his fate. Changing fate. How terrible was this kind of power? Lin Sun couldn't help but sigh at this moment. If he hadn't met his apprentice Tang Jiang, he might not have discovered nirvana. Order had such a magical power. Similarly, if it hadn't been for Xia Ji, he wouldn't have been able to deeply understand nirvana. The mysteries behind order, S ability to resurrect the dead and defy the heavens and change fate, were truly astonishing. After returning to the cave residence, Lin Sun continued to practice in seclusion. Xia Ji stayed with him all the time, eating, sleeping, and eating. Only when he woke up occasionally did she talk to him in a quiet and peaceful way. Another 8 years passed in a hurry. In this year, Lin Sun's cultivation entered the transcendent realm great perfection. In this realm, there was no more breakthrough. In the eternal realm, he was only one step away. At the moment when he broke through to the great perfection, Lin Sun's heart surged with enlightenment. The 3 realms of heaven, longevity, nirvana, and creation on the immortal way, his immortal supreme potential was completely released at this moment and integrated into his cultivation. This was a true great perfection, a kind of supreme aura that arose spontaneously. On the immortal way, he was invincible. Lin Sun could clearly feel that all the power in his body showed a kind of great perfection, great freedom, and great transcendence. It was just like a furnace with thousands of Daos turning into one. Compared to the transcendent late stage, after reaching the great perfection, it also sublimated his cultivation to a new level. Not to mention the old monster in the transcendent realm great perfection, Lin Sun was confident that he could easily defeat the eternal realm's Dharma idol. This was a feeling that came from the bottom of his heart. It was the deepest understanding and judgment of his own strength, not arrogance. At the same time, in these 8 years, Lin Sun was also about to reach nirvana. The order had been refined to 80% level, which further changed his immortal law. He clearly sensed that, under the nourishment of his immortal law, little immortal and little netherworld, the 2 order powers born in the last era, were constantly evolving and transforming. Now, they had a faint aura of heaven level 9. What surprised him most was that these 2 orders still had extremely amazing growth potential. It was also this discovery that made Lin Sun realize that the little immortal that once covered the immortal world and the little netherworld that once covered the netherworld were both divine level order powers. The ultimate form of their transformation was destined to be related to the immortal world law and the netherworld law. This was something that Lin Sun didn't know at all before. It was a pity that Wu Shuang was not here. Otherwise, with Lin Sun's current understanding of the nirvana, the control of the mystery of order was also enough to easily infer the potential and mystery of the nirvana. It was also in this first year that Tao Long, who had been promoted to the Elder of Sky Origin Pavilion, came to visit. Lin Sun suddenly realized that it was very likely that something big had happened. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, no one would come to disturb his cultivation. As expected, when he saw Tao Long for the first time, he looked serious and said, "Brother, Pavilion Head Yanji invites you and other deputy pavilion heads to meet him in the central hall." "Has Pavilion Head Yanji come out?" Lin Sun was shocked. Tao Long said, "No, it's just a spiritual manifestation." Lin Sun nodded and immediately told Xia Ji to wait in the cave residence, while he went straight to the central hall. The central hall. When Lin Sun arrived, Xian Failing, De Guillaume, and other 7 deputy pavilion heads had already arrived. Yin Ji, who was thin and looked simple, sat casually in the central main seat. Swish! When Lin Sun's figure just appeared outside the hall, Yin Ji's eyes stared at him like a pair of torches and immediately showed a surprised expression. "How many years has it been? You have already reached the full completion of this realm?" As soon as Yin Ji said this, Xian Failing and others were shocked and showed a strange expression. Before, they didn't notice the change of Lin Sun's breath. If Yin Ji didn't tell them, they wouldn't have noticed it. "Senior, you have a good eyesight." Lin Sun cupped his hands to salute. He knew he couldn't hide it from Yin Ji. Yin Ji said with a smile, "Last time, you cultivated in seclusion for 55 years and advanced from the early stage to the late stage of the transcending realm. This time, you cultivated in seclusion for 18 years and broke through the most difficult stage of this realm, reaching the great perfection realm. This speed of advancement is unprecedented. You won't be able to find a second one." Xian Failing sighed. "Alas, old weirdo Yin, you don't know. Since this kid stepped into the transcendent realm, I feel uncomfortable every time I meet him. It's like he's riding on my neck. Of course, this was a joke. Everyone couldn't help laughing. Until Lin Sun sat down. Yanji said, "This time, I call you here for one thing. Yu Beihai, the old guy, will prove the eternal Tao in half a year. It's time to prepare for some things in advance." Everyone couldn't help but look serious. According to the time, shouldn't it take about 3 years? Yong asked. Yanji said, "How can there be an accurate date for breaking through the realm? Yesterday, I received a message from old Yu. When I talked about this, he was a little surprised, but I'm sure that this is also a good thing. After all, the opportunity to prove the eternal Tao has finally come." Xian Failing said, "Then, what do we need to do?" Yin Ji said, "When the time comes, I will personally protect old Yu. What all of you need to do is to protect the safety of the Yuan sect. Once enemies attack, you must defend the primordial realm from being conquered. Otherwise, not only will the foundation of the Yuan sect be shaken, but old Yu's Dao validation will also be affected." In the end, his expression became serious. "A few years ago, I went out to inquire about the news of voodoo cult and Zen cult. I'm sure that they won't miss this opportunity," Fang Daoping said in a deep voice. Everyone's reaction was very calm, because this was within their expectations. Yan Ji asked, "Is there any news from the eighth heaven?" "They can't protect themselves. Even if they want to get involved, they can't do it." Xian Failing said, "At present, the most difficult thing to figure out is the attitude of the eternal gods in the ninth heaven. If they also get involved, there will undoubtedly be many variables." Yan Ji frowned and said, "We must make plans for this matter." Xian Failing nodded. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little gloomy, Yan Ji smiled and said, "You don't have to be too anxious. No matter how many variables there is still me and Tai Xian. When the sect really reaches the critical moment of life and death, we will fight with them. To think about victory, think about defeat first. This is the safest consideration." Seeing that Xian Failing and the others were about to say something, Lin Sun suddenly said, "Seniors, can you listen to me? Add more chapters." Chapter 30:27. Yin Ji, Xian Failing, and the others were stunned and looked at Lin Sun to see what he was going to say. Lin Sun said calmly, "From today on, I will guard the infinite star sea alone." Everyone was surprised. The entrance to the Yuan realm was located in the infinite star sea. When Lin Sun came to the Yuan realm for the first time, he crossed the infinite star sea and took a trial in the holy city of 10,000 desolation in the depths of the infinite star sea. Finally, he was qualified to enter the Yuan sect to cultivate. It could be said that the infinite star sea was the first line of defense outside the Yuan realm. Once a disaster came, the enemy would definitely appear in the infinite star sea. Lin Sun's proposal to guard the infinite star sea by himself was undoubtedly tantamount to guarding the front line and protecting the Yuan sect by himself. "No, it's too rash." Yin Ji shook his head. When he was about to dissuade Lin Sun interrupted with a smile, "No one under the eternal realm is my opponent. Under such circumstances, it's most suitable for me to guard the infinite star sea." After a pause, he looked at Xian Failing and the others. "Seniors, you don't have to persuade me anymore. I've made up my mind." Xian Failing and the others narrowed their eyes slightly, feeling emotional. They could see that they really couldn't dissuade Lin Sun this time. "There's still half a year. Why are you in such a hurry?" Yin Ji frowned. "What's more, if we let you guard the outside alone, won't those opponents laugh at us?" Lin Sun said with a smile, "Senior, you don't have to persuade me anymore." Yin Ji was silent for a moment and said, "If you encounter danger, remember to return to the sect as soon as possible." Lin Sun cupped his hands and nodded. "Look, this kid is getting more and more arrogant. Now, even us old guys can't persuade him." Xian Failing teased, "There's no other way. We can't beat him even if we join forces." Yong sighed. The others couldn't help laughing. Although they were teasing, they all knew that Lin Sun was indeed the most powerful deputy pavilion master in the Yuan sect. He was the most powerful one under the eternal realm. Old weirdo Xian. Yin Ji looked at Xian Fei Ling and the others. I'll have to trouble all of you to gather the clansmen of the major clans in the Yuan sect. You must bring all of them into the Tian Yuan Mystery Land before old Yu reaches the Eternal Realm. The Tian Yuan Mystery Realm was formed by the divine-level sequence power of the Yuan sect. It was also the core forbidden area of the Yuan sect and the safest place. Xian Failing and the others nodded solemnly. As for the descendants of the 9 peaks and 3 pavilions, those below the Transcendent Realm, bring them to the Tian Yuan Mystery Realm as well. As for the others, they will guard the Yuan religion with you. Yin Jidao reminded. Leave them to us, Xian Failing said. On the same day, Xian Failing and the others took action. Meanwhile, Lin Sun left the Yuan sect alone. Infinite Star Sea. The waves were vast and boundless. A myriad of stars were embedded in the sky like gems, and they glowed dazzlingly, causing this mysterious expanse of ocean to seem like a divine and eternal place. In fact, this place was a forbidden area all year round and was covered by the sequence power. Without the permission of the Yuan sect, ordinary cultivators wouldn't be able to enter. In the center of the Infinite Star Sea, there was an ancient giant city that was bathed in the radiance of the stars. The towering city wall seemed to be made of divine gold, and it was magnificent. Holy city of absolute gods. This city was built by the founder of the Yuan sect, Yuan Shu. Tens of thousands of immortal divine materials were used to build it. In the center of the city, there was a building shaped like a divine sword that pierced through the clouds. This was the Sword Palace of Absolute Gods. Back then, the Yuan sect assessment that Lin Sun participated in was held on the dojo in front of the Sword Palace of Absolute Gods. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed. Now, he was already the deputy pavilion master of the Yuan sect Sky Pavilion in a famous transcendent realm existence. He was no longer the same as when he was still the Juetian emperor. On the highest floor of the Sword Palace, Lin Sun leaned against the railing and looked into the distance. Looking from here, he could see the vast expanse of the sea in all directions. Countless stars scattered on the surface of the sea, and it was quiet and vast. Xie, a battle will break out in this sea area soon. After a while, Lin Sun retracted his gaze and looked at Xie, who was standing quietly on the side, and said, "If you want to fight with me, you must promise me one thing." Xie said without hesitation, "Say it." Lin Sun said seriously, "If there is a fatal danger, you must not stand in front of me at all costs." Xie was silent for a moment and said, "Okay." Lin Sun smiled and said, "Of course, with the combat power that you and I have now, no one in this world can threaten us unless it's an Eternal Realm expert." Speaking of this, a trace of emotion appeared between his eyebrows. In the past, when he and Xie encountered danger, they could only hide and escape. Even if they tried to resolve it, they would have to pay a heavy price. But now it's completely different. Half a month later, a piece of news spread all over the world. The Witch sect and the Zen sect have joined forces and announced that they want the Yuan sect to hand over Lin Sun, the successor of the Mind sect. Otherwise, they will personally go to the Yuan sect to kill Lin Sun within a month. A single stone caused 1,000 ripples. The major forces in the seventh heaven were the first to get the news, which caused a great uproar. In the past, the Ten Clan Battle Alliance also wanted to deal with Lin Sun. However, it is said that the Ten Clan Battle Alliance suffered heavy casualties in the sixth heaven. Who would have thought that the 2 ancestral halls of the Witch sect and the Zen sect would join forces to deal with Lin Sun? Someone was shocked. The world is going to be chaotic after all. The 4 ancestral halls are transcendent and have a terrifying foundation. Now, except for the ancestral hall of the Spirit sect, the other 3 ancestral halls are facing each other. Once a war breaks out, it will affect the situation of the entire world. I just don't know if the Ten Clan Battle Alliance will participate. All kinds of discussions sounded. The declaration of war by the Witch sect and the Zen sect also made the situation in the world tense and depressed. As time passed day by day, more and more news came out. The ancestral hall of the Zen sect has gathered a group of transcendent realm masters and is ready to go. It is said that the Zen sect's army will be led by Buddhist Lord Ji Kong. In the ancestral hall of the witch sect, a group of priests has been dispatched. It is said that there are more than 20 old monsters in the transcendent realm great perfection level. It is said that a pavilion master of the Yuan sect is about to prove the eternal realm. At that time, the Yuan sect's deity level order power will no longer be able to protect the Yuan realm. The Yuan sect is in danger. The world was completely shaken. Countless cultivators from various forces were trembling in fear. For countless years, the four ancestral halls stood in the world with a transcendent status. Even the 10 immortal giants of the eighth heaven were wary of them. Who would have thought that such a conflict would break out between the three ancestral halls of the Yuan sect, the witch sect, and the Zen sect? Once such a conflict broke out, the impact was bound to affect the entire eternal world. On the shore of the infinite star sea, time passed quickly. A month passed. On this day, the sky was clear and boundless. With a buzz, the void fluctuated, and a group of figures appeared. There were men and women, old and young. Each of them had a vast aura, towering and extremely terrifying. This was a group of transcendent realm existences. There were a total of 60 people. The person in the lead was dressed in black. He had his hands behind his back, and his aura was raging like the darkness of the eternal night. His face was old, and his eyes were filled with the aura of vicissitudes. However, along with his appearance, the originally clear sky was suddenly filled with darkness. Black clouds were surging, filled with an endless aura of disaster. The witch sect's priest, Tu Muhan. Behind him, there were 24 transcendent realm great perfection existences and 35 transcendent late realm existences. Including him, there were a total of 60 people. One should know that even the number one immortal giant, the Wang family, only had 9 transcendent realm great perfection existences emerge after countless years. But now, the witch sect's ancestral court alone sent 24 transcendent realm great perfection existences. As one of the 4 ancestral halls, the witch sect's foundation was terrifying. Tu Muhan placed his hands behind his back, and his old eyes stared at the vast sea in the distance. His voice was hoarse and low. This is the infinite star sea, where the Yuan sect's lair is located. The others were also sizing up the infinite star sea. All of them sensed a layer of obscure energy of order covering the boundlessly vast ocean. Soon, Beihai will attain eternity. By then, the eternal calamity will descend, and the divine level order power protecting the Yuan sect will be severely suppressed. That will be the best time for us to kill our way into the Yuan sect. After a while, Tu Muhan spoke softly. His turbid eyes were filled with indifference and coldness. However, before that, perhaps we can have a good talk with the Yuan sect. Everyone's eyes flickered, and they seemed to know what Tu Muhan was going to do next. I'm the witch sect's priest, Tu Muhan. Today, I'm here to pay a visit with a group of people. Tu Muhan opened his mouth. His deep and hoarse voice rumbled through the sky like thunder, and it spread towards the depths of the infinite star sea. At the peak of the 1,000 Extinction Sword Palace, Lin Sun opened his eyes for meditation, and a trace of coldness appeared in the depths of his pupils. Pay a visit? He's obviously not here with good intentions. Just as he was about to respond, he heard a sneer. Tu Muhan, look at the situation now. Why are you still pretending to pay a visit? Just state your purpose of coming. With the voice, the figure of Xian Failing appeared beside Lin Sun. Lin Sun was stunned and said, Senior, didn't we agree that I should guard this place alone? Xian Failing said with a smile, The war hasn't broken out yet. I'm just here to see what these old bastards of the witch sect want to do. Lin Sun said helplessly, As you wish. On the shore of the infinite star sea, after hearing Xian Failing's voice, Tu Muhan's eyes flashed, and he said, Xian Failing, since you're here, I might as well speak frankly. As long as your Yuan sect hands over Lin Sun, I'll leave with my people immediately. His voice rumbled and spread away. What if you don't hand him over? Xian Failing said slowly, talking to him across the air. Tu Muhan, said expressionlessly, I'm afraid that there will be no place for the ancestral cord of the Yuan sect in this world in the future. His voice was filled with endless coldness, which made people's hearts tremble. Hearing this, Xian Failing was silent for a moment, and then suddenly laughed up to the sky. Your witch sect is really arrogant. If you have the guts, why don't you come in now? His voice was full of ridicule and disdain. All the big shots of the witch sect had uncontrollable killing intent on their faces. P.S. Kavinka is really powerful, and the second one is a little late. Chapter 30:28. Tu Muhan looked calm and said, If words are useful, why do we need cultivation? Since Yuan Church insists on protecting Lin Sun, why not wait here for a while? As he spoke, he sat cross-legged on a rock on the side of the sea and closed his eyes to rest. Seeing this, other big shots of witchcraft cult also sat down casually and calmly. In a Wanju sword palace, Xian Failing frowned and said to Lin Sun, On the surface, witchcraft cult has sent 24 Transcendent Realm Great Perfection and 36 Transcendent Realm late-stage experts this time. But they dare to clamor to destroy our sect. I'm afraid they have other preparations. Lin Sun said, Can they send people in the eternal realm? Xian Failing pondered and said, Maybe there is such a possibility. But don't worry. Once the eternal realm experts appear, they will be restrained and counterattacked by the rules of heaven and earth. If it were any other time, it wouldn't be a big deal to injure some of your Tao. But don't forget, the epic calamity will arrive in 1,000 years. Injuring your Tao at this time is a huge risk for any eternal realm expert. Lin Sun said thoughtfully, In this case, they must be able to use the power of the eternal realm experts, but they will never use it easily, right? Xian Failing smiled and said, Of course. Just like in our Yuan clan, if we really encounter a life-and-death situation, do you think the Taishian Pavilion Master, who is trapped in the mystery realm of comprehending mystery, will sit back and watch? Lin Sun nodded. Xian Failing said, The core purpose of witchcraft cult is nothing more than to take advantage of the situation. They want to kill you and seize the divine order power in your hands. I'm afraid they know that it's almost impossible to destroy our sect without an eternal realm expert. After a pause, Xian Failing said, It's the same for Zen Church. Lin Sun exhaled a long breath of turbid air and said, I will guard this place and stop them here. Xian Failing patted him on the shoulder and said, Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Remember, our sect will advance and retreat with you. It didn't take long for Xian Failing to leave. Lin Sun thought of the third sister of Spirit Church. The only thing he was worried about now was that if his third senior sister and the others found out about the situation in the Yuan sect and rashly came to the rescue, it was extremely likely that other variables would occur. For example, on the surface, the witch cult and the Zen cult had joined hands to deal with the Yuan cult. But could this be a pretense to lure third senior sister and the others to come and rescue them? As long as they captured the third sister, they would be able to threaten Lin Sun. Similarly, if something like this had happened in the Spirit Church, there would probably be many unforeseen variables if you were to head over to rescue them. I can only hope that third senior sister and the others will stay calm and not get involved, Lin Sun murmured. Time passed day by day. On the shore of the infinite star sea, Tu Muhan and the other important figures of the shaman cult were waiting quietly. The soldiers were at the gates of the city. This was a direct threat. The news quickly spread throughout the world. Everyone knew that the sorcerer cult had taken action and were waiting for the right moment. A great battle could break out at any time. The news spread to the spiritual church as soon as possible. Our spirit church has always been on good terms with the Yuan church. How can we remain indifferent when something like this happens? Spiritual Master Qin Yun was very surprised. He didn't expect that Ruo Su would come to visit him after learning that the witch cult and the Zen cult had joined hands to attack the Yuan cult. She hoped that the spirit church wouldn't help the Yuan cult. This is probably a trap, Ruo Su said softly. In other words, the purpose of the witch cult and the Zen cult's action this time is not to fight with the Yuan cult, but to deal with me and other junior brothers and sisters. As long as they capture us, they can threaten my junior brother to do anything. Qing Yun's eyes flickered. But don't you worry that if your guess is wrong, your junior brother and the Yuan cult will suffer a great disaster. Ruo Su smiled and said, "It's useless to worry. As long as we don't make any mistakes, my junior brother won't be affected." After a pause, she continued, "What's more, if he really needs help, he would have sent a message to us." Qing Yun fell silent for a moment before he said, "I won't hide it from you. Not long ago, I received a message from Fong Daoping, and he said that he doesn't allow our spirit church to interfere in this matter. I was quite curious at first, but it would seem like both the Origin Church and that junior brother of yours were probably prepared." Ruo Su's eyes lit up. "So, the sect already knows about this matter?" Qing Yun nodded and said, "When Yu Beihai proves his Tao, the sect will send a group of seniors to observe the ceremony. When that time comes, you and the other successors of Fong Siyuan won't have to go with them." Ruo Su thought for a while and agreed. There was only half a month left before Yu Beihai proved his Tao. By the infinite star sea, Tu Muhan and the other important figures of the witch cult felt a wave of spatial fluctuations. Soon after, a group of imposing figures in monk robes and straw sandals appeared. All of them looked solemn and dignified. They were the important figures of the Zen cult. The leader had a snow-white beard and a skinny figure. He wore a monk robe that was full of patches. His sunken cheeks were filled with wrinkles, and his wrinkled skin had a bronze color. Buddha Ji Kong, known as the first Buddha of the Zen cult, he had proved his Tao for hundreds of thousands of years. He was like a living fossil. Behind Ji Kong was a group of powerful figures of the Zen cult. Their number was equal to that of the witch cult. Didn't succeed? Tu Muhan got up and asked in a hoarse voice. Ji Kong shook his head and said, "The spirit cult hasn't taken any action. I couldn't wait for a long time, so I had to leave in advance." Tu Muhan frowned and said, "So, it's impossible to capture the successors of Fong Siyuan of the spirit sect to threaten Lin Sun. Crafty plots and schemes are just a small trick." There was a solemn and calm expression on Ji Kong's skinny face. "Since it's useless, we should achieve our wish with an open and above-board army." Tu Muhan snorted coldly. "This conspiracy was proposed by your Zen cult. Don't slap yourself in the face." Ji Kong looked calm and said, "From big to small ways, there is no difference between high and low." As he said, he looked at the infinite star sea in the distance and said, "This time, our two ancestral halls have joined hands, and Yuan cult must be ready to fight with all their strength. Brother Tu, what do you think of the odds of winning with the forces in our hands?" "We'll do our best and leave the rest to fate," Tu Muhan said indifferently. "As long as the eternal realm of Yuan cult doesn't take action, no one can protect Lin Sun this time." Ji Kong said calmly, "The master of the core dimension has been plotting for eons and gave birth to a lotus that has never existed before. Once such an immortal supreme attains eternity, the world is destined to fall into chaos, and our two ancestral courts will be the first to bear the brunt." Both witch cult and Zen cult regarded Fong Siyuan Mountain as their mortal enemy, which was not without reason. Tu Muhan said, "Lin Sun's current combat power is enough to pose a fatal threat to us old guys. It's not easy to deal with him. Who cared about such a young man in the past? A young man? But now, such a young man had become a thorn in their side, which was something that no one had expected." Ji Kong was silent for a while and said, "In the sixth heaven, the Ten Clans War Alliance dispatched the Dharma images of many eternal realm figures, but without exception, they couldn't do anything to Lin Sun. In Brother Tu's opinion, under such circumstances, how should we kill him?" Tu Muhan said expressionlessly, "No one saw the battle in the sixth heaven with their own eyes. Even if Lin Sun has the supreme power of this realm, it is doomed to be impossible for him to destroy the Dharma image of the eternal realm. In my opinion, there must be a big shot of Yuan cult helping him in the sixth heaven." After a pause, he continued, "But the situation is different now. We have already killed our way out of Yuan cult. On the contrary, Lin Sun's threat is the least. It's the old guys of Yuan cult who should be vigilant." Ji Kong said, "What if the master of Tai Xian takes action?" Tu Muhan's eyes suddenly narrowed, And then he said indifferently, "If he dares to take action, someone will deal with him." Ji Kong said, "It seems that Brother Tu is well prepared. Isn't your Zen cult the same?" Tu Muhan snorted coldly. "If you don't have some confidence, you can't eat the fat meat of Yuan cult." Ji Kong was silent for a long time, and suddenly sighed. "I'm afraid the outcome of this battle will fall outside the chess game." "Outside the chess game?" Tu Muhan frowned. "What do you mean?" Ji Kong said, "A hunch may not come true. You people from a Zen sect are the most mysterious. You are shrouded in mist." Tu Muhan showed a trace of disdain. "I don't care about the inside and outside of the chess game. I only believe that as long as I'm strong enough, I can crush everything." Ji Kong smiled slightly and said nothing more. Half a month later, at the top of the Wanju's Sword Palace, Lin Sun, who was meditating, seemed to feel something and suddenly stood up. Almost at the same time, a deep and melodious bell rang in Yuan cult, and the world fell silent. Then, in a forbidden secret realm behind Yuan Qing Mountain, a figure stepped in the air, came to the sky, and looked up at the sky. He was dressed in a white robe and looked like a young man. His skin was crystal white, and only the depths of his eyes were surging with mysterious and unfathomable Taoist light. On his back, there was a wooden sword with a red silk rope tied to the hilt, fluttering in the wind. As he stood there casually, he was like a carefree, immortal god that looked down upon the world, and he carried an unrestrained aura and an extraordinary and proud bearing. Yuanqing Pavilion Head, Yu Beihai, an old antique who had been practicing in seclusion for countless years, and a legend on the road of swordsmanship. A long time ago, he and Tai Xian were called the double skills of Yuan cult. "Old Yu, you can prove your Taoism with peace of mind today." In the distance, Yin Ji's figure appeared out of thin air, and he said calmly, "Don't pay attention to other things." Yu Beihai nodded slightly. Then he stretched out a finger from his sleeve and made a stroke toward the sky. A shadow suddenly appeared in the depths of the clear sky. The shadow spread and swallowed the whole day. The world suddenly fell into darkness. Boom! At the same time, the power of order around Yuan realm seemed to have suffered a great threat and began to fluctuate violently. P.S. Double monthly votes started today. Goldfish didn't encourage people to spend money on monthly votes. Just do what you can. After dinner, Goldfish would continue to write, but it would be very late. Chapter 3029. The skies suddenly darkened while a shapeless aura of calamity spread out, and it pressed down upon everyone to the point of suffocation. Under the sky, Yu Beihai stood with his hands behind his back. His sleeves fluttered in the wind as he remained silent and motionless. Xian Failing and the other deputy pavilion masters raised their heads, feeling a little nervous. A calamity was about to descend. Pavilion Master Yu Beihai would attain eternity today. "Is everything ready?" Xian Failing asked. Du Guiyong, Fong Daoping, and the others nodded. Other than the transcendent realm existences, the other members of the Yuan school, as well as the clansmen of the major clans, had already been settled in the Tian Yuan mystery realm. Now, the primordial realm was cold and quiet, and it was extremely empty. All right, from now on, all of us in the transcendent realm and above will be stationed in the primordial realm. No matter what, we can't allow anyone to disrupt Pavilion Master Yu's path. Xian Failing's eyes were resolute. The other deputy pavilion masters nodded and began to act. Xian Failing headed out of the primordial realm alone. He was still worried about Lin Sun's safety after all. Infinite Star C. At the peak of the Wanju's Sword Palace, Lin Sun also raised his head. The clear sky had already been completely covered by thick tribulation clouds that were pitch black like ink, and it seemed as if the heavens and the earth had instantly fallen into boundless darkness. The suffocating atmosphere of disaster seemed to be everywhere, making Lin Sun's body feel cold. Heaven and earth were terribly silent. Even the vast infinite star sea seemed to have fallen into absolute stillness, without a trace of wind or waves. The tribulation clouds in the sky were getting thicker and thicker, and the sky was getting darker and darker. A dignified look appeared on Lin Sun's face. Without a doubt, this was the eternal Great Tribulation that belonged to Origin Clear Pavilion, Lord Yubei. It was unimaginably terrifying. Even though Lin Sun had experienced many unimaginable and mysterious tribulations in the past, he still felt frightened at this moment. Eternity. This was a legendary realm in the eyes of all living beings in the world. On the other hand, in the eyes of experts on the eternal path, eternity was like a natural chasm that was practically impossible to surmount. Old monsters like Xian Failing, Fong Daoping, and Duguyong had proven their Tao for tens of thousands of years, but none of them had proven their Tao to be eternal. Examples like this were common in the other 3 ancestral halls and the 10 undying giants. The reason was simple. The threshold of eternity was too high. It was so high that even those transcendent realm great perfection existences couldn't touch it. Once one entered the eternal realm, they would no longer fear the calamity of the end of eras. They would be able to use and control the laws and order of heaven and earth. This was no different from a creator. Although Lin Sun was now a transcendent realm great perfection, he had no clue about the eternal Tao. However, he wasn't in a hurry. He had just stepped into the threshold of the great perfection realm, and there would be plenty of opportunities in the future to seek the mysteries of Tao proving eternity. Boom! Suddenly, a wave of violent rumbling resounded in the world. This was not the sound of tribulation lightning, because the eternal tribulation targeting Yubei had yet to descend. Lin Sun noticed that the power of order covering the infinite star sea was fading away at an alarming rate. Even a god-level order would be suppressed by the aura of the eternal calamity. How terrifying would such a calamity be? Lin sighed with emotion. Then he suddenly turned around and looked at the shore of the infinite star sea with his abyss-like dark eyes. Summer solstice. Lin Sun said softly. Summer solstice, who was sitting on one side and concentrating on eating melon seeds, raised her head. 2 words were written in her clear eyes. What's the matter? She didn't seem to care about the impending eternal calamity at all, nor did she care about the power of order that was constantly dissipating from the infinite star sea. It seemed that as long as she was by Lin Sun's side, even if the sky collapsed and the earth sunk, or the flood rose to the sky, she wouldn't be able to attract her attention. The enemy is coming. Listen to my orders later. Lin Sun said softly. Summer solstice agreed and put away the few spiritual melon seeds in her palm. She decided to destroy these delicious little things after the battle was over. Summer solstice stood up. Her graceful figure was still dressed in a long black robe. Her beautiful face, which was enough to make the world dim, was hidden under the brim of the hat, revealing only her crystal white chin. Unknowingly, the white bone spear was already in her slender and fair hand. She stood side by side with Lin Sun and looked into the distance together. In a place far away, there was a ripple in the void. A burst of terrifying aura rose into the sky like a hurricane, breaking the dead atmosphere between heaven and earth. The murderous and oppressive aura was like a landslide and a tsunami, crushing the sea surface and spreading. The turbulent waves were still roaring and rolling, and the void showed signs of disorder visible to the naked eye. After that, groups of figures transformed into dazzling rays of light that whistled over from extremely far away. All of them were mighty and possessed monstrous, imposing auras, and their entire bodies emanated the eternal glow of the Tao that illuminated this world that seemed like eternal night. These figures were the voodoo cult experts led by Tu Muhan and the Zen sect experts led by Ji Kong. The weakest of them had the cultivation of transcendent realm late. There were more than 100 experts in the 2 ancestral halls. Their own power gathered together. Wherever they passed, it was simply overturning mountains and seas, causing the world to shake. It was too terrifying. Even in the 8th heaven, the combined power of the top 10 immortal forces couldn't stop the impact of such a lineup. When seeing this scene from a distance, Lin Sun's expression was calm, as usual. On the side, Xia Ji counted seriously and said, "Do you want to compete to see who can kill more later?" Lin Sun was startled, and his expression suddenly became serious. Don't be careless. They must have trump cards that can threaten you and me. It was related to Xia Zhi's safety, which made him a little nervous. Are you afraid? Asked Xia Zhi. Lin Sun shook his head. I'm only worried about you. Xia Zhi said, then I will fight side by side with you. Lin Sun was relieved and said, that's for the best. Far away, Tu Mahun, Ji Kong, and the other allied forces of the two ancestral halls stopped in their tracks. Their gazes swept towards the holy city of 10,000 desolation, noticing the existence of Lin Sun and Xia Zhi. Their eyes slightly narrowed, and they were all a little surprised. Lin Sun, Tu Muhun, said in surprise, what is Yuan's sect doing? They actually let the two of you guard this place? This was really beyond their expectations. Previously, they thought that if they wanted to capture Lin Sun, they would have to first kill their way into Yuan's sect and go through many obstacles before they could see Lin Sun. But who would have thought that before they entered the primordial realm, they would see Lin Sun in the infinite stars sea outside the primordial realm? Moreover, in the huge holy city of 10,000 desolation, there was only Lin Sun and a woman. Ji Kong also raised his eyebrows slightly and said, it's indeed a little abnormal. Lin Sun said indifferently, why? Didn't you come to deal with me? Why are you hesitating now? It's not really hesitation. We just didn't expect Yuan's sect to throw caution to the wind like this. Could it be that Yuan's sect has already decided to sacrifice you, a remnant, in order to let you Beihai attain eternity? Tu Muhan's eyes were frightening. He had already sensed that there were no other ambushes in this sea region apart from Lin Sun and Xia Zhi. Wrong, said Lin Sun indifferently. In the eyes of the entire Yuan sect, it's enough for me to deal with you. There's no need to trouble anyone else. Arrogant. One of the old antiques of a shaman cult sneered. Everyone, I've already sensed the surroundings with a secret technique. There are no ambushes here. You can deal with this lad freely. Another old antique said with a murderous aura. However, despite saying so, no one took action. The scene in front of them was too abnormal. They clearly knew that the two ancestral halls came for Lin Sun, but they sent Lin Sun to guard outside the primordial realm. Who wouldn't be surprised? There must be something wrong when things were abnormal. Ha! At the peak of the palace of 10,000 desolation swords, Lin Sun couldn't help but laugh. Even he didn't expect that just because he was guarding here, the old monsters of the two ancestral halls would be so suspicious that they didn't dare to act rashly. For a moment, the world was filled with Lin Sun's mocking laughter. This made Tu Muhun, Ji Kong, and the others frown. Could this lad, have he really been abandoned by Yuan's sect? If so, it was a great thing. However, who could be sure that this wasn't a conspiracy? Lin Sun, why are you so happy? Xia Zhi asked in confusion. Lin Sun said, I'm laughing at these old fellows. I don't know how long they've lived, but they're becoming less and less courageous. Xia Zhi said seriously, isn't it normal for them to be afraid of the two of us? Lin Sun was stunned. How could she understand it like that? Immediately, he couldn't help laughing again and nodded. It seems so. Seeing the two of them talking and laughing as if there was no one else around. The meaning revealed in their words made the faces of Tu Muhun and the other old monsters of which sect gloomy. Who cares if he's playing tricks or not? I'll go and meet him first. Suddenly, an old antique of which sect stood out. His figure was tall and strong like a mountain, with snow-white bone rings hanging on his ears. His skin was steaming with terrifying totem light. Lu Tu, one of the priests of which sect, a transcendent realm, great perfection existence. Boom! He stepped in the air and moved the void. He was like a tyrannical and fierce god. Wherever he passed, the void rumbled and cracked. Here, a long bone rod appeared in his hand, and he smashed it towards Lin Sun from a great distance. Boom! The shadow of the rod swept through the air, and the terrifying black, immortal law poured down like a waterfall. From afar, it looked like a divine rainbow from outer space. Let me, Xia Zhi said, and her graceful figure rushed out, waving the white bone spear. Boom! The horrifying rod's shadow exploded. A cold smile appeared on Lutu's face. This was just a feint. Seeing Xia Ji rushing over, a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He twisted his wrist, and the white bone rod made a dull and ear-piercing sound of thunder, smashing across the air. The momentum was so heavy that it shook the universe. This strike caused the void to collapse, and an unfathomable ravine suddenly appeared in the nearby sea area. The surging killing power was so strong that it made people's hearts tremble. Xia Ji didn't dodge, but used the spear to block it. Clang! The white bone rod and the spear collided, and an earth-shattering explosion resounded. The horrifying aura of destruction spread between the two. Lutu's figure shook slightly, and he couldn't help but reveal a hint of surprise. This woman is so strong, but he didn't have much time to think. In Xia Ji's slender white jade hand, the white bone spear simply and directly stabbed out, and the obscure power of karma and fate spread. At this moment, Lutu's heart trembled. He seemed to have sensed danger and subconsciously dodged. Puff! In the next moment, a handful of scarlet blood splattered. Lutu only felt a sharp pain in his body. He subconsciously lowered his head and saw a white bone spear piercing through his chest. He revealed a look of disbelief. I didn't dodge? How is this possible? Fast forward. Chapter 30:30. Lutu had fought in the world for countless years and experienced the baptism of blood. His combat power was also extremely terrifying. However, in that instant, he had been completely confident that he would be able to dodge that attack. Yet he had still been struck. This abnormal and strange scene stimulated him to the point that he couldn't accept it at all. Lin Sun's expression was as usual. When he sparred with Xia Ji, he was almost hurt by the power of karma and destiny. Boom! In the blink of an eye, terrifying power erupted from the white bone spear the moment it pierced through Lutu's body, which could be said to be indestructible, immediately exploded, and blood splattered everywhere. Clang! Xia Ji put away the white bone spear. Her clothes fluttered, and her demeanor was as calm as before. Killing a witch cult transcendent realm great perfection with one blow didn't seem to affect her at all. But in the distance, Tu Mahun, Ji Kong, and others' expressions were a lot more serious. Lutu's death caught them off guard. Apart from being surprised, they also felt a chill and realized the horror of Xia Ji. Karma and destiny are intertwined. This kind of supreme power of the Great Way is indeed terrifying. Ji Kong's expression was solemn, and his eyes were shining brightly. He saw, through Xia Ji's means, everyone to deal with this kind of power is like fighting against the Great Way divine retribution. You should confront it head-on. You must not retreat, otherwise you will suffer a fatal blow. You said so much. Do you dare to fight with me? Xia Ji's voice was clear and ethereal, indifferent and calm. Ji Kong said, Fellow Taoist, a battle of life and death is not a child's play. You should kill the enemy with all your strength. Well said. Lin Sun's figure rose into the air, and his black eyes were cold. He said, Today, I will experience the glory of your two ancestral halls. Tu Mahun's old face was filled with a touch of killing intent. I want to see how powerful the immortal Supreme Way is. His skinny figure emerged with hundreds of millions of blood-colored lightning arcs. All of a sudden, he seemed to have turned into an ancient thunder god, and the destructive aura surged. A black wooden staff appeared in his hand. The wooden staff surged with obscure and mysterious energy fluctuations. Go kill this man, Tu Mahun said coldly. Boom! The nearby experts of the shaman cult also circulated their power at this moment. They either controlled the dark green divine flame or controlled the white bone halberd. They were like ghosts and gods from hell that had descended to the world. Some stepped on fiery clouds with countless purple saber auras lingering around their bodies. Some had divine light in their eyes as they held the mysterious beast-skin Tao diagram. Every transcendent realm existence unleashed their divine might without concealing it. They unleashed their strongest treasures. The terrifying divine might caused the sea region to be in chaos, and the nearby void was in a state of turbulence. Kill. The elders of the witch sect swarmed forward. Lin Sun transmitted his voice, Xie Ji, remember what you promised me. As he spoke, he flicked his sleeve. The abyssal sword cauldron soared into the sky and floated above him and Xie Ji. Clang! In the sword tripod, a Taoist sword rushed out with a clang. Lin Sun grabbed it in his hand and waved it down. This sword strike was vast, boundless, and brilliant. Rumble. The battle broke out. The attacks of the elders of the witch sect were like an overwhelming torrent, full of violent and boundless destructive murderous aura. The transcendent realm Great Perfection was the strongest existence under the eternal realm, standing at the top of the heavens. Now, a group of transcendent realm Great Perfection joined hands and unleashed all their means. They unleashed their strongest Taoist weapons and attacked Lin Sun together. It was imaginable how terrifying their power was. However, compared with 18 years ago, Lin Sun had changed again. His realm had reached the transcendent realm Great Perfection, and he had refined 80% of the order of Nirvana, order into his own immortal law. His combat power was so strong that he could look down upon all his peers in the heavens and the earth. As he slashed out with his sword, clatter, hundreds of millions of sword auras whizzed out, filled with divine brilliance. They crisscrossed and raged in all directions. This sword was full of the power to destroy the world, obscure and mysterious. The power was simply indescribable. It made the world fall into a dead silence. Only the clear and melodious sword's sound resounded. The elephant was invisible, and the loudest sound was silent. It was precisely because this sword was too powerful that it had the might of returning to its original source and losing all its splendor. Boom! The sky fell, the earth cracked, and the seawater evaporated. The attacks of all the seniors of the shaman sect that covered the heavens and the earth were forcefully suppressed, resisted, and then exploded into pieces by this sword strike. One sword actually resisted the besiegement of the witch cult's elders. What a terrifying combat power. The pupils of the witch cult's elders shrank, and their faces changed. Before they came here, they already knew that Lin Sun's combat power was heaven-defying, and he possessed the power of the immortal supreme. But they never expected that his combat power had reached such a level. Tu Muhan's pupils shrank in the distance, and his heart trembled. He shouted immediately, "Use all your strength. Don't hold back." There was no need to remind them at all. The witch cult's elders had already used all their strength. Prohibition. With a roar, 36 transcendent realm late experts joined hands. Their figures were scattered in different directions, and they instantly formed a battle formation. Boom! A terrifying prohibition fluctuation spread, causing the whole world to fall into a chaotic black mist. There were even wisps of thunder and lightning surging in it, rolling towards Lin Sun and summer solstice. This battle formation was the supreme inheritance of the witch cult. 36 experts joined hands, and their aura communicated with each other. It was like a single person fighting, but the power release was terrifying. It was said to be able to refine the gods. Even the transcendent realm Great Perfection had to avoid it. Originally, this was one of the trump card prepared by Tu Muhan. But even they didn't expect that Lin Sun would show such a terrifying combat power as soon as he attacked. They had to use this formation in advance. Kill. 36 transcendent realm late existences shouted in unison, and the entire battle formation was activated. In an instant, the heavens and the earth were covered in divine brilliance, flowing fire, Taoist radiance, and treasure aura. A rain of light splashed, and a deity's voice reverberated. It reflected the terrifying scenes of demons and gods roaring, time and space collapsing, and everything turning into powder. It was like the end of the world. Immediately afterward, a figure with a height of thousands of feet condensed from the battle formation and punched towards Lin Sun. That punch was like 100 mountains falling from the sky. Battle formation? Lin Sun couldn't help but show a cold arc on his lips. Swish! He attacked with his sword again. In an instant, it seemed that there was a lightning in this world, but it was faster than lightning. The surging and terrifying fist was like a bubble in the face of this sword, and it was instantly torn apart. Swish! 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 Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Sun continuously slashed out thousands of sword chi, rolling and whistling. Under this kind of attack, the huge figure with a height of thousands of feet instantly showed countless cracks and finally burst into pieces. The 36 Transcendent Realm late experts trembled all over and coughed up blood. The battle formation formed by them was violently tumbling, showing signs of instability. How is it possible? Many people were shocked. This is the witch ancestors' god exterminating formation. Even ghosts and gods can be killed. How could it be shaken? This is impossible. Boom. While they were in a panic, Lin Sun had already swung his sword. His thick black long hair fluttered, and his figure was filled with divine brilliance. He was like a peerless dominator, looking down at the audience with immeasurable power. Under the slash of the terrifying sword intent, the battle formation could not bear the heavy burden and directly collapsed. Among them, there were more than a dozen Transcendent Realm late experts who had no time to dodge and were killed on the spot by the vast sword chi. This swordsmanship is too terrifying. No, not only that, this boy's combat power is obviously stronger than those in the same realm. Is this the power of the immortal supreme? At this moment, everyone present was shocked, and their expressions changed suddenly. Damn it! In the distance, Tu Muhan's face was gloomy. Lin Sun's combat power was too heaven-defying. Even if he had never underestimated Lin Sun, he found that the power Lin Sun controlled had exceeded his expectations too much. Puff, puff, puff. On the battlefield, while Lin Sun broke the battle formation, Xia Ji waved the white-bone spear and simply stabbed more than 10 times. Every time he stabbed, he would kill a Transcendent Realm late expert. In the blink of an eye, those Transcendent Realm late experts who were not killed by Lin Sun all died in Xia Ji's hands. During this period, the Transcendent Realm late experts of the witch cult did not stop, but they were restrained by Lin Sun as soon as they rushed over. As a result, they could only watch their companions die, tragically in Xia Ji's slaughter. Blood rained down. Angry shouts resounded between heaven and earth. As soon as the battle started, 36 Transcendent Realm late experts of the witch cult were all killed. This bloody scene made Tu Muhan's eyes almost pop out, and his hair stood on end. As for Ji Kong and the other Zen experts who had not made a move in the distance, their expressions became solemn. So what if there were two people? Under such a siege, he killed a group of old monsters of the witch cult without any hesitation. No wonder this boy dared to appear at the front line of the Yuan cult. With the power of the Immortal Supreme, he is indeed too difficult to deal with. Ji Kong sighed softly. Other than Lin Sun, the sharp means that Xia Ji displayed also made him secretly shocked. Ji Kong, is your Zen cult go to watch from the sidelines and laugh at my witch cult? Not far away. Tu Muhan's expression was unfriendly. Ji Kong said solemnly, "Brother, don't be angry." As he spoke, he waved his hand. Everyone, go and help the witch cult fellow. Remember, when you make a move, just deal with that woman. There's no need to hold back. Boom. Behind Ji Kong, a group of Zen cult old antiques who had been accumulating power for a long time burst out of their bodies one by one. The Brahma light was dazzling, and its divine power was immeasurable. They held Buddhist staffs, alms bowls, green lamps, rulers, knives, horsetail whisks, and other treasures. Like the Buddhas of the heavens, they rushed into the battlefield together and besieged Xia Ji. The battle broke out, turning the world upside down, and the sun and moon lost their brilliance. Lin Sun was besieged by a group of witch cult old antiques, while Xia Ji was restrained by a group of Zen cult old antiques who had just rushed into the battlefield. The battle was intense, and both sides showed no mercy. In the distance, Tu Muhan and Ji Kong watched the battle from afar, ready to make a move at any time. In the depths of the sky, deep in the thick ink-like tribulation clouds, there was a terrifying sound of tribulation thunder. It rumbled and rolled, causing the world to tremble. This eternal tribulation that belonged to Yu Beihai was finally coming. Seeing this scene, Tu Muhan and Ji Kong looked at each other. They both knew in their hearts that the battle that broke out between the three ancestral halls had just begun. I wish everyone a happy Mid-Autumn Festival. The goldfish will continue to update after eating. Chapter 30-31. At the entrance of the primordial realm, Xian Failing narrowed his eyes and looked solemn. He clearly saw the battle taking place in front of the city of 10,000 Absolute. When he saw Lin Sun and Xia Ji being restrained by the old antiques of witchcraft cult and Zen cult respectively, Xian Failing's heart suddenly tightened. There were too many opponents. Moreover, the two ancestral halls hadn't used their trump cards yet, so it was very easy for many unpredictable accidents to happen. Xian Failing took a deep breath and immediately made a decision. As long as Lin Sun showed signs of being unable to hold on, he would immediately save him. But soon, Xian Failing was suddenly stunned. Gradually, he was dumbfounded. The reason was that Lin Sun was not suppressed on the battlefield, but he was suppressing those antiques of witchcraft cult by himself. This made Xian Failing feel confused. The existence of the wizard religion at the peak of the good fortune realm is far from being comparable to the top 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven. Now, more than 20 such old monsters used all their strength to deal with Lin Sun, but they were suppressed by Lin Sun alone, which was too unexpected. On the battlefield, with a bang, Lin Sun broke a Red Tao soldier with one sword strike. The sword chi spread and directly hacked an antique into the air, and his body was split. If it weren't for the timely help of others, even his spirit might be lost. At this time, the antiques of witchcraft cult looked extremely solemn, and their eyes were full of shock and anger. Lin Sun's combat power was too powerful. Only when they really fought with him could they understand his horror. His whole body was like a towering mountain standing beyond the 9th heaven, indestructible and unshakable. Anyone who fought with him would feel powerless. Bastard! Someone was furious and rushed to kill Lin Sun. Lin Sun didn't even look at him and slashed with his sword. Bang! Even though this sword strike was blocked by the old man, the force that emanated from it forcefully shook the old man to the point the bones in his entire body exploded into pieces. Blood flowed from all 7 of his apertures, and he seemed as if he'd been struck by lightning. His body rumbled as it exploded into pieces, causing a rain of blood to spray down. Hurry up, let's stop him together. 2 seniors were seriously injured by Lin Sun with a single strike, which shocked and enraged many people. They didn't dare to attack rashly, but cooperated with others to attack Lin Sun with all their strength. Even so, it still couldn't trap Lin Sun, let alone kill him. The reason was that Lin Sun was too strong at this moment. He was like a god that charged through this expanse of the heavens and the earth. He was murderous, cold, and emotionless, and every single move he made caused those seniors to feel a form of unprecedented pressure. All of this came from his terrifying combat strength that was rarely seen in the world. He could be said to be the #1 expert beneath the Eternal Realm, so he didn't take mere cultivators at the same realm seriously since a long time ago. In the past, when he was still in the Transcendent Realm initial stage, he could already battle across realms and kill opponents in the Great Perfection Realm. When he was in the Transcendent Realm late stage, he was able to kill a group of 10-clan Battle Alliance's Great Perfection Realm elders alone outside the 6th heaven. And now, he had also reached the Great Perfection Realm. He'd even refined and absorbed 80% of the Nirvana Order energy, and his eternal laws weren't inferior to the Divine Rank Order energy at all. Under such circumstances, could anyone in the eternal true world who was at the same realm as him go against him? In less than 10 minutes of time, 2 seniors had been crushed on the spot, and over 10 were injured. Blood dyed the sky red. The heavens and the earth had fallen into chaos. This battle was too intense, and it could be said to be rarely seen throughout the ages. If it wasn't for these seniors possessing extremely strong reserves and possessing numerous life-saving trump cards that helped them deal with the danger they faced at the critical moment, then the casualties they suffered would have been even heavier. On the other hand, Lin Sun revealed an aura of supremacy in the entire world, and he seemed to possess an arrogant bearing as if he was the only one in the entire world. All treasures were unable to approach him. All restrictions were unable to obstruct his footsteps. All techniques were countered by the divine might of the eternal laws. If this scene was witnessed by all the cultivators in the world, they would probably be unable to believe that Lin Sun was actually so domineering while fighting all the seniors of the shaman sect's ancestral court by himself. In fact, Xian Failing, who was witnessing this scene, was already shocked speechless. In the past, he only managed to find out about the battle that happened in the sixth heaven. He only heard that Lin Sun had annihilated a group of transcendent realm great perfection existences of the Ten Clan Battle Alliance. But after all, it was just hearsay. And now, he witnessed it with his own eyes. The shock he felt was especially strong. When Xian Failing noticed the battle situation on Xia Ji's side, he couldn't help but gasp. Every single one of the Zen sect seniors was extremely difficult to deal with. The Brahma light on their bodies surged into the heavens and the earth, and they cooperated with each other tacitly. They besieged Xia Ji like waves. Xian Failing asked himself if he was in such a situation, he would probably have to fight with his life on the line, and it was highly likely that he would have already died. But Xia Ji was different. Her figure flickered like a stream of light, drifting erratically, and no one could catch her movements. Even if she was heavily besieged, she was still able to narrowly avoid the overwhelming attacks. When she attacked, it was extremely simple and direct. She swung the white bone spear as if it was her own arm. She stabbed, flicked, hacked, shook, swept, smashed, curled, collapsed, all of them are the most simple and direct combat methods, without any fancy tricks. But the horror of its power was enough to make any transcendent realm, great perfection, existence shudder. The battle had only lasted for a moment, but 3 opponents had died in Xia Ji's hands, and more than a dozen were seriously injured. Her strength was comparable to Lin Sun's. Even if Lin Sun was heaven-defying, Xian Failing could still understand it. After all, everyone knew that he had the immortal supreme power. But Xia Ji's combat power was also so tyrannical that Xian Failing couldn't understand it at all. He was so stunned that he looked dull. All of this was also seen by Tu Muhan and Ji Kong. Tu Muhan's expression became more and more livid and gloomy, while Ji Kong's expression became more and more dignified. Seeing that as the battle continued, the situation of the 2 ancestral halls became more and more unbearable. Tu Muhan could no longer hold back and shouted, "Use the will manifestation." His voice shook the universe. Suddenly, a witch cult expert on the battlefield waved his sleeve. A piece of black beast bone exploded in the void, and a stalwart figure emerged, exuding the aura of the eternal realm. He was clad in beast skin, barefooted, and his long hair was unkempt. However, his eyes were more frightening than lightning, and his bronze-colored skin bulged as if it was made of bronze liquid. With his appearance, the world trembled violently. Is Beihai crossing the retribution? After the majestic figure like an ancient barbarian god appeared, his eyes looked into the depths of the sky, and his rough and resolute expression was full of coldness and indifference. In the depths of the sky, the tribulation thunder was rolling like hundreds of millions of giant pythons rolling in it. The brilliant tribulation light was flowing, piercing people's mind and soul. Wu Huanjin. Xian Failing was shocked. Wu Huanjin, one of the witch cult's heaven priests, was a supreme figure who had proved the way for countless years. In terms of cultivation time, even Yuan Xian, the master of Yuanshu Pavilion, was inferior to him. Even the 9th heaven, Wu Huanjin's reputation is extremely resounding. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was a living mythical figure. Heaven Priest, please take action and capture Lin Sun. In the distance, Tu Muhan said solemnly. However, Wu Huanjin's eyes were locked on Lin Sun, and his voice was indifferent. Where is Tai Xian? Even if he doesn't appear in person, his will should be here. As he spoke, the witch cult's transcendent realm, old monsters who besieged Lin Sun, had retreated far away. Lin Sun did not chase after them. He looked at Wu Huanjin indifferently and said, "There is no need for Tai Xian Pavilion Master to deal with you. I alone am enough." Arrogant. Tu Muhan couldn't help but laugh out of anger. A young man in transcendent realm, great perfection, even if he had the immortal supreme power, who gave him the courage to provoke the will of an eternal realm. The other witch cult old men also sneered. This Lin Sun, he was simply overestimating himself. Lin Sun said slowly, "It can be seen that the great defeat suffered by the Ten-Clan Battle Alliance in the Sixth Heaven didn't teach you a lesson. Otherwise, I'm afraid you wouldn't dare to use a mere Eternal Realm's Dharma image." Everyone almost thought that they had heard wrong. Just an Eternal Realm? Just? Lin Sun's tone was so arrogant. At this time, even Wu Huanjin's will couldn't help but frown. However, he didn't seem to care about a junior like Lin Sun at all. He looked into the distance and said indifferently, "Tai Xian, if your will doesn't come out, don't blame me for being impolite." Obviously, he believed that Lin Sun dared to be so arrogant because he had a backer behind him. And this backer was Tai Xian. Lin Sun couldn't help but laugh. Prejudice was arrogance. Wu Huanjin's attitude reminded him of the eternal realms that he killed in the Sixth Heaven. It seemed that they all had such a high and mighty attitude. Thinking about it, which eternal realm figure in this world could think that a young man in transcendent realm could kill the will of an eternal realm? The Ten-Clan Battle Alliance did not expect it. Obviously, Witch Cult and Zen Cult did not expect it either. Otherwise, Wu Huanjin would not act like this. If so, I will force you to show up. A cold light flashed in Wu Huanjin's eyes, and he made his move. Boom! He directly stretched out his hand and grasped in the air. The terrifying palm power covered the sky, entwined with countless scarlet and frightening eternal way profundities. It was extremely terrifying. At this moment, even Xin Failing's heart was in his throat, and his fists were clenched. At this moment, Lin Sun did not dodge, but rushed up to meet it. Boom! He also struck with his palm. Under the incredulous and horrified gaze of the crowd, Wu Huanjin's palm, which was enough to make any transcendent realm desperate, was forcibly broken. The sound of the explosion resounded, and the sky was full of light rain. Lin Sun had moved to the front of Wu Huanjin's will. Wu Huanjin was obviously shocked, and his pupils shrank. This scene had truly overturned everything he knew, and he didn't dare believe it. However, as an eternal realm existence, even a Dharma image of willpower was extremely terrifying. At this moment, he directly used his killing move. He pressed out his hands, and a terrifying blood-colored seal condensed and pressed down on Lin Sun. Boom! Lin Sun waved his fist to meet it head-on. In the earth-shattering collision sound, the blood-red seal cracked and exploded. Lin Sun's figure shook slightly, and then the 5 Tao forms rushed out together. They were like 5 god dominators appearing out of thin air, bombarding Wu Huanjin's will. Caught off guard, Wu Huanjin was suddenly besieged. He shouted again and again, madly attacking, using all kinds of supreme magic skills. The power was peerlessly terrifying, which was enough to easily kill anyone under the Eternal Realm. But all these were in vain in front of Lin Sun. They were all blocked and resolved one by one, unable to hurt Lin Sun at all. Lin Sun, who had the upper hand, did not hesitate. His body and doppelganger attacked with all their strength. Their killing intent was monstrous, and their power was overwhelming. Wu Huanjin was completely suppressed. This scene made everyone present dumbfounded, and their hearts trembled. How was this possible? Boom! In just a few blinks of an eye, a shocking explosion resounded. Wu Huanjin's was forcibly smashed by Lin Sun at this moment. The monthly votes fell out of the top 20. During the period of double monthly votes, the competition is very fierce. Please support me. Chapter 3032. Boom. The horrifying turbulence of the Great Path spread. Wu Huanjin was blown up. His spiritual will exploded into a rain of light, surging between heaven and earth. Everyone present felt as if they were struck by lightning. Their eyes widened, and they were all shocked by this scene. Tu Mohan's scalp was numb, and his hands and feet were cold. Lin Sun, a transcendent realm, great perfection existence, destroyed the spiritual will of an eternal realm existence of their witch cult with his own combat power. The impact of this was too great, and Tu Muhan was in disbelief. The witch cult people around him were also shocked, and their faces were pale. After living for so long and experiencing countless bloodshed, their state of mind had long been tempered to the point of being indifferent. However, at this moment, they still felt terrified, and a chill ran down their spines. The eternal realm was a supreme existence that stood above the heavens, overlooking the changes of the era. Who would dare to believe that the power belonging to the eternal realm would be easily destroyed by such a young, transcendent realm cultivator? He was really killed by this kid. Xian Failing couldn't help but take a deep breath. He was extremely shocked. Puff! Suddenly, a muffled explosion was heard, followed by a splash of blood. Among the Zen cult old antiques who were besieging Summer Solstice, one of them was pierced by Summer Solstice's white-bone spear. His corpse was lifted into the air and then exploded. This old antique was shocked by the scene of Lin Sun killing Wu Huanjin's spiritual will. His mind was shaken for a moment, and Summer Solstice seized the opportunity to kill him on the spot. This bloody scene caused the expressions of everyone present to go pale. At this time, Lin Sun had already killed those old antiques of the witch cult again. Ji Kong, if you don't use your trump card, I'm afraid we will all be stopped outside the Yuan cult today. Tu Muhan said in a hoarse voice. Then let's decide the winner in one round. Ji Kong put his palms together, and his expression was solemn. All right. Tu Muhan took a deep breath and took out an ancient bee-skin scroll from his sleeve. Sacrifice. The ancient scroll burned under the sky. Immediately after, the spiritual will of the eternal realm appeared out of thin air, and there were as many as 6 of them. These spiritual will were of men and women, old and young, but without exception, their auras were terrifying. The entire sea was silent and oppressive. The terrifying pressure even affected the chaos of the rules of heaven and earth, and the power of the Great Path showed signs of chaos. 6 eternal realm Dharma idols. This was the strongest trump card left behind by the ancestors of the witchcraft ancestral court for countless years. Originally, this power would only be used if the witchcraft ancestral court was destroyed, but now it had been used by Tu Mu. This was not the end. Almost at the same time, Ji Kong took out a golden lotus seat with a solemn expression. Along with a burst of grand and boundless Sanskrit chanting resounded. One after another, majestic figures that were like Buddhas appeared on the golden lotus platform. A total of 8 people. Every single one of them was the will left behind by the sages of the Dhyana sect over countless years, and they all possessed unparalleled might. They were either holding flowers and smiling, or glaring angrily, or bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying the fate of mankind, or silent and quiet, or solemn and solemn. Along with their appearance, the heavens and the earth were dyed in a layer of vast and dazzling Buddhist light. Lin Sun pulled Xia Ji to his side at once, and his expression became slightly dignified. The 6 eternal realm Dharma idols of the witchcraft sect. When the 8 eternal realm Dharma idols of the Dhyana sect gathered together, there were 14 of them. Undoubtedly, in order to deal with the Yuan sect this time, the 2 ancestral courts of the witchcraft sect and the Dhyana sect had put in a lot of effort. They took out all the trump cards that they had accumulated for countless years. Such a lineup, in addition to the 9th heaven, I'm afraid you can't find a second one. It was too terrifying. At this time, the transcendent realm great perfection of the witchcraft sect and the Dhyana sect had already retreated. Even they were shocked when they saw this scene. Originally, Such a force would only be used after killing their way into the Yuan sect. No one expected that in this infinite star sea, just because of Lin Sun and Xia Ji, the two ancestral courts were forced to use such a trump card. Oh no! When he saw this scene, Xian Failing couldn't sit still anymore. He rushed out of the Yuan sect's entrance and shouted, "Do you really intend to fight with my Yuan sect to the death?" His voice rumbled over the infinite star sea. When the voice sounded, Xian Failing had already moved over and stood beside Lin Sun, glaring angrily. Even he didn't expect that the two ancestral courts would be so desperate to deal with Lin Sun and Xia Ji. Tu Muhan's voice was hoarse and old. "Xian Failing, you finally showed up. But I'm afraid you're courting death if you come alone." Ji Kong said solemnly, "We came here just to take Lin Sun away, but we didn't expect his combat power to be so powerful that we had to use such means. It's really a helpless move." Xian Failing looked cold and said, "A helpless move? You came to the Yuan sect to commit murder, and you call that helpless? When will your Diana sect stop being so despicable?" The 14 Eternal Realm Dharma idols looked at all this indifferently. It seemed that they didn't care about these arguments and didn't bother to refute. Now that things have come to this, it's time to see the result. Tu Muhan looked grim. "Right now, your Yuan sect only has two choices. First, hand over Lin Sun, and we'll leave immediately. Second, let's see what we can do." His words were full of murderous intent. Ji Kong looked into the depths of the sky and said, "Now Pavilion Leader Yu Beihai is proving the eternal way. At this critical moment, your Yuan sect doesn't have the protection of the divine level order. Once we break in, your foundation will be severely damaged, and it will even affect Pavilion Leader Yu Beihai's process of proving the eternal way. I hope you can think twice." Xian Failing's expression became gloomier, and he said, "With these 14 Eternal Realm Dharma idols?" Tu Muhan said coldly, "If Tai Xian dares to use his power, someone will deal with him. You should know that if things really go to that point, the Yuan sect's casualties will be far more than this." Ji Kong said, "Taoist friend, in the end, Lin Sun is the successor of Feng Xiyuan. Are you really going to destroy the Yuan sect's foundation of the Great Way for countless years to protect him?" Xian Failing's expression became more and more indifferent, and he said word by word, "If we can't even protect a deputy pavilion leader of our Yuan sect, what's the use of the Great Way?" Tu Muhan sneered. "It seems like we can only fight to the end." Lin Sun, who had been silent all this while, said indifferently, "I just destroyed an Eternal Realm Dharma idol, and now you're being arrogant again. Do you people of the sorcerer cult not learn from your mistakes?" "You?" Tu Muhan's expression immediately turned extremely ugly. However, his heart was filled with awe. He quickly told the 6 Eternal Realm Dharma images of Lin Sun, killing Wu Huanjin's Dharma image. At the same time, Ji Kong also told the Zen sect's Eternal Realm antiques about the previous battle. For a moment, 14 Eternals, the Realm Will and Dharma, all looked at Lin Sun with a touch of amazement. "Senior, please retreat. I'll take care of this myself." Taking a deep breath, Lin Sun stepped forward with cold eyes. "If I lose, I will die. If I win, none of them can escape today. Life or death." It was very simple. Just one battle, and it would be decided. "Summer solstice, why don't you watch from the side?" Lin Sun said softly, but there was no room for refusal in his words. Summer solstice was silent for a moment. Without saying a word, she retreated far away. However, her hand was still tightly holding the white bone spear. Of course, she would not just watch Lin Sun die. When Xian Failing was about to say something, Lin Sun had already taken a step forward. His tall figure surged with fighting and killing intent, and his whole momentum changed. "Lin Sun is standing here. You'd better come at me together." His dark eyes were cold as he glanced at the 14 Eternal Realm Dharma images. His indifferent voice resounded between heaven and earth. Witnessing this scene, Xian Failing seemed to have finally made a decision and silently retreated. "You're courting death." In the sorcerer cult's camp, a man who looked like a teenager was the first to leap forward and punch. Boom! As the punch burst forth, Heaven and earth shook, and the universe reversed. It was as if this punch had forcibly broken the shackles of the heaven and earth rules, and it was extremely tyrannical. The strong fist energy glowed like dusk, giving people a sense of despair, as if the world had ended and doomsday had come. It was shocking. Many old fogies who had transcended the exceptional realm felt their hearts throbbing, and their eyes were stinging. This was the power of the eternal realm. It controlled the heaven and earth rules, and it was immortal and eternal. This punch could easily kill any one of them. Lin Sun's original body stood there, with the immortal law flowing and turning into a big abyss that covered the sky, making his power obscure and mysterious. Boom! He waved his sleeve, and the fist energy glowing with dusk suddenly exploded. It collapsed and dissipated inch by inch in front of him, unable to hurt him at all. This caused the young man's pupils to constrict. The other eternal realm Dharma images present were also moved. Sure enough, this young man had a heaven-defying combat strength that could not be measured by common sense. They looked at each other and attacked together at this moment. How terrifying would it be when 14 eternal realm Dharma idols joined forces to attack? The vast infinite star sea collapsed in an instant. The seawater completely evaporated, and the void between heaven and earth collapsed and collapsed like a piece of paper. Everything fell into a terrible scene of destruction. It was like the end of the world. All kinds of supreme magical methods whistled out, and the eternal Taoist light emerged as if blotting out the sky and covering the earth. Countless shocking visions appeared. At that moment, everyone had an illusion that the world was collapsing, the sun and the moon were collapsing, and everything would cease to exist in such a terrible killing. It was too horrible. Everyone present felt suffocated, and a chill ran down their backs. Their minds were awed. In the face of such a terrible attack, Lin Sun's expression was as indifferent as before. Only in the depths of his indifferent eyes, a burning fighting intent emerged, and his spirit was completely boiling. An indescribable burning, killing intent spread and raged in his chest, stimulating every inch of his skin to seem to be eager to fight and to feast on the enemy's blood. This battle, he wouldn't hold anything back anymore.